Welcome to Ichiraku Ramen, and thank you for joining me for another journey into the world of shinobi. Before we begin, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who listens, supports the channel, and enjoys these stories. Today's story is part 2 of Naruto, Rinnegan Chronicles. In this story, during his training with Jiraiya, when Naruto Uzumaki struggles to perform properly the Summoning Jutsu, instead of begging for power, he demands that the nine-tailed fox inside him pay rent for living in his body, in the form of chakra. Kurama reluctantly complies, flooding Naruto with an overwhelming surge of power. But something unexpected happens. The massive clash between Naruto's chakra, the nine-tails energy, and the strain of the summoning technique triggers a mysterious reaction deep within his body. In that moment, Naruto awakens a power thought to belong only to legends. The Rinnegan. This is a fan-made story inspired by the world of Naruto. All characters in the original universe belong to their respective creators. This narration is created for entertainment purposes as part of a transformative storytelling experience. The story itself was written by Redrover 117, and full credit goes to the original author. If you would like to read the original version, the link to the story is included in the video description below. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Chapter 15. Fire and Sound. Fire Country. Forest, near Katana Mountain. Trees, boulders, hell, even the earth itself was blown away by the blast of gravity that was sent out. Team Shikamaru recovered, however, and looked at the source of the attack. A red-headed girl about their age with eyes that were all too familiar to the group. She has the Rinnegan? What the hell? I thought Naruto was the only one. Kiba exclaimed in surprise. Clearly we were mistaken, Neji mused upon seeing the powerful Dujutsu. This just got a lot more troublesome, Shikamaru said with narrowed eyes. Bansho Tenin, the group turned and evaded several trees that came at them. You can run but you can't hide from my eyes, little rats, Tayuya stated. Yugito stuck to the trunk of a nearby tree and kept her eyes on the Otto Nen. You all get out of here and go after the Uchiha and Pinky. I'll stay here and face her. You can't expect us to leave you to fight her alone, can you? Kiba growled out. I'm the only one here with any experience with the Rinnegan. I know its weakness. If you've got a better idea, I'd love to hear it, Yugito shot back. Besides, the longer we stay here, the closer our mission comes to failure. Get going. I can handle this, she told them. Shikamaru nodded in understanding. All right, but don't get yourself killed. Naruto would never forgive me if anything happened to you. He and the others disappeared after the other Otto Nins a moment later. Deciding to face me alone? You are either brave or stupid, Tayuya mocked. Actually, I wanted to talk to you without anyone else listening in, Yugito smirked unimpressed. I want to know where you came from, Uzumaki. Tayuya's eyes widened at the name. Yes, I know your clan name. Only an Uzumaki can wield the Rinnegan since they are descended from the Rikudo Sennin, so that makes you one. What I want to know is where did you come from when I know for a fact that the homeland of the Uzumaki was destroyed years ago. As if I'll tell you anything, bitch, Tayuya snarled. Yugito's eyes narrowed into a glare, then I'll make you talk. Shinra Tensei. Dust was blown up as gravity blew away another section of the earth. Damn it, she has more control than Naruto, Yugito thought as she recovered. Mateki. Genbuso Kyoku, Tayuya whispered and played her flute. A doki came from the side and swung its large club at the blonde girl. Yugito dropped down below the branch to evade. Another doki was waiting for her, however. It held some kind of large double-edged sword and slashed at her as she fell. Yugito used her fire manipulation to literally blast herself out of the way and land on the ground below. Kaizuki. Yugito called out as she turned swiftly and slashed at where the final doki was located. It evaded the attack, however, and instead she cut through a tree, causing it to melt. Not bad, bitch, but not good enough, Tayuya said with a smirk. Why don't you come down here and say that to my face? Yugito growled up at her. Suin Raikyu. 2 spheres of lightning chakra were hurled at the redhead, whom just let the grin on her face widen. Shinra Tensei, she whispered as the 2 lightning balls were dispersed. She even has Naruto's defense capabilities as well, damn it. I'll just have to get in close and attack from there. This better work, Yugito thought and ignited her arm in a blaze. Kaizuki, the blonde said as she slashed the ground in front of her, causing smoke to erupt upwards. Smokescreen, Tayuya caught on and raised her hand. Shinra Tensei, the cloud of smoke was blown away a moment later, leaving a grinning Yugito. What are you smiling at, bitch? The redhead mocked but became wary when the grin widened. Shit, Miteki. Genbuso Kyoku, she said as she started playing her flute again. Yugito appeared behind her and slashed with her flame-covered arm, Kaizuki. Before she could land the hit, however, a doki came from the side and caught her with its club. Yugito flew several feet before crashing through a tree and landing in a heap on the ground below. The blonde stood clumsily a few moments later as the three dokis surrounded her and Tayuya stared down at her. No one has survived the sound of my flute, the redhead said simply. Makio no ran, Tayuya whispered as she played a different tune. Now what is she doing? Yugito asked in thought and saw the three doki spew out some kind of fog monsters. What the hell are those things? Her eyes widened as the three monsters caught her. These spirits will drain your chakra until there is nothing left, you will die here. That's all there is to it, Tayuya said simply as the fog monsters wrapped themselves around the blonde. She's right, they're draining my chakra. Damn it, I'll be dead in minutes if this keeps up. Yugito growled in thought as she attempted to break free but no avail. Suddenly her eyes flashed in recognition. If I can't break free, maybe I can give them a stomachache. Yugito started channeling the Nibi's chakra, which was then drained from her system by the fog monsters. The spirits broke away, releasing a screech of pain before dissipating into nothingness, surprising to Yuya. What did you just do? The redhead exclaimed upon seeing the fog monsters disappear. As if I'll tell you anything, bitch, Yugito said, mocking her words from before. Tayuya's face became red in anger. You dare mock me? Fine, let's see you handle this. She dismissed her doki knowing they were useless at this point and brought her flute to her mouth once more. Miteki. Mugen Ansa, she whispered as she began to play. The world seemed to distort around them. The sky changed into what looked like a red ocean. Wires hung from the ceiling and pinned Yugito the ground. Around her were hundreds of bones. Yugito struggled to break free, but it proved in vain as she looked at her arms. They seemed to melt before her eyes as she let out a pain-filled scream. Game over, Tayuya whispered as she approached. Once she was literally right in front of the blonde, she raised her hand, Shinra Tensei. Yugito gasped as a loud crack echoed through the forest. A moment later she fell backwards and hit the ground with a thud. Tayuya stood over her with clenched hands. She stood there looking down at her fallen opponent for a few good seconds before turning away. I'm sorry I had to kill you, but I can't risk my secret getting out. Now I need to deal with your friends before they have the chance to say anything, the redhead said and started away. She didn't get far, however. A deafening roar echoed out from where Yugito lay as the blonde was engulfed in a torrent of purple light. Tayuya turned quickly in surprise as Yugito seemed to pull herself up. The purple chakra around her ignited into flames and condensed to form a cat-shaped cloak around her body with a single tail. What the fuck is that? Tayuya exclaimed as her eyes processed what she was seeing. That chakra is alive. Her eyes widened in shock as Yugito suddenly disappeared from view. She turned swiftly but was unable to dodge the chakra, flame-enhanced slash that swiped across her chest. Motherfucker. The redhead crashed through the nearby tree as Yugito touched down in front of her. Come on, Uzumaki. Don't tell me that's the best you've got. Tayuya stood up from where she crashed and glared at the chakra, Flame Cat. Her curse seal had absorbed most of the attack, but she knew it couldn't take many more like it. Eventually it would have to retract or it would corrupt her body from the inside out, even with the drugs Orochimaru had supplied them with. Even though she had been given a curse seal, she knew that Orochimaru didn't really want her. The reason he'd never taken her body was because of his need for learning jutsu. The Sharingan was a natural choice for him compared to the Rinnegan. She was very thankful for that. Bansho Tenon, Tayuya called out, knowing that genjutsu would be useless in this situation. Several trees impacted where Yugito stood but were seemingly destroyed the moment they came close. Damn it, why won't you just stop? Because I need answers. Yugito snarled as a ball of fire started to expand in front of her. Nekomata Enden. The ball suddenly exploded forwards in a stream of fire, incinerating everything it touched. Shinra Tensei, Tayuya called out as she covered her face with her arms. There was a resounding kaboom as the ball finally exploded upwards in a hail of dirt. Once it was over, Tayuya could be seen looking out of breath, her cloths torn and her curse seal beginning to retract. I see you're reaching your limit, Yugito stated with a growl. Tayuya just glared, fuck you. You first, Yugito shot back as she started forming yet another compressed fireball. This bitch is too strong. I need to use cider, I'm dead. I can't survive another attack like that, the redhead thought as her hands settled into a seal she never used unless absolutely necessary. Nekomata Enden. The fire cat exclaimed as she shot the fireball at her target. Tayuya saw it coming and released her own jutsu, Chibaku Tensai. And the world was consumed in light. Senju Tsunade never did like the way Konoha did things, not even when she was a child. Her grandfather knew what he was doing when he founded Konoha with the Uchiha Madara, but he was too naive when it came to plans for the future. An example of his naivety is when he handed the Biju out to other countries to maintain balance in the elemental countries. He was a good man, however, he did create a beacon of light amongst this chaotic world they lived in. When he died and her granduncle took the position as Hokage, he revised a few details in the way Konoha was run and in so doing preserved the peace for many years until the First Great Shinobi War, where he fell in battle. Then her sensei took the position and things really went downhill. Sarutobi Hiruzen was man of many talents. Almost unrivaled when it came to politics and combat, however his age quickly caught up with him after the Third Great Shinobi War. He knew this also and appointed Namikaze Minato as his successor, since he was much better at keeping the council in line and was nay unstoppable on the battlefield, having practically single-handedly defeated Iwagakure no Sato. In all honesty, if it wasn't for the Kyuubi's attack on Konoha, then Minato would still be Hokage to this day and Kakashi wouldn't have had to take the position. The copy nin knew he wasn't cage level by a long shot, but it wasn't his strength that made him Hokage, it was his reputation. He was a man to be feared of, second only to Namikaze Minato himself. Ever since he became Hokage, he stopped slacking off and worked on regaining his lost strength from before Kyuubi attacked. He'd really let himself go over the years since Minato died, and he knew if Konoha was going to survive, then it needed a Hokage who could protect it with the will of fire, just like all the previous Hokages. Hokage. That title brought up some unpleasant memories for one Senju Tsunade. Her fiancé Dan and her younger brother Nawaki were killed in service of Konoha during the Second and Third Wars. Because of this, Tsunade had ended up with thinking that Konoha was responsible for their deaths and disappeared for many years with the permission of the Sandaime Hokage. Truthfully, if it wasn't for the completely unpredictability of one Uzumaki Naruto, she wouldn't have even stepped foot back in Konoha ever again. Then there was her new apprentice, Ni Yugito. It was pretty obvious to her that she and Naruto were smitten with each other, but knew they needed to keep things professional while they were a part of the same team. It didn't really come as a surprise when she saw Yugito pull the two of them into a kiss as Naruto left with that pervert Jiraiya. When Tsunade took the young girl on as her apprentice, it was because she reminded her of how she was at that age. She stood up for what she believed in, always fought with all her heart, and was completely dedicated to helping people. When the young girl began working at the hospital, Shizune helped out too by giving her some textbooks on medicine and the like. Though none of the other villages admitted it, Konoha was and still is the best place to find medical help. Tsunade herself was a prime example of a medic nin. She could heal just about anything physically possible, and her talents had made her well known. Tsunade set up a test of sorts for Yugito. She had to perform a basic surgery on an unconscious fish which had becoming poisoned. It took months to get it right for even the best medic nins, so it came as a big surprise when she found that the poison was gone from the fish at the end of the day, and Yugito was looking quite smug standing off the two side. Yugito had passed her little test on her first try. That simple fact drove him one very significant detail about the girl. Yugito's potential in the medical field rivaled that of her own. So naturally she had a vested interest in the girl. Jiraiya had even made a comment over one of their drunken get-togethers that Yugito looked and acted just like she did as a teenager, when she was with Dan. For Tsunade, that realization terrified her because it felt like she was looking in a mirror every time she saw the girl. Tsunade didn't want her to face the same hardships if she could help it. That's why she was out here now. When she heard that Yugito and half of the Konoha 12 feet had set off after a seemingly kidnapped Sakura and Sasuke, she knew something was wrong. She went with the medical team which had been dispatched following the team from Suna, which had come as part of the now allied village to help. About 27 miles from Konoha she felt the background aura of a disturbing chakra she knew to be that of a Jinchuriki's Biju. Having faced several during the wars she knew that they were not to be taken lightly and that it could only be Yugito. She had told the other medic nins to continue on while she headed off to find her apprentice. The site she came to was not what she expected, however. There was a large crater about 80 feet across covered in debris. Flames dotted the area and she caught sight of two figures lying unconscious in the center of it. One was definitely Yugito, though she looked like she'd been through hell. She was bleeding extensively from her arms and her clothes were ripped as if something tried to tear them apart. The other girl wasn't much better off either. Her clothes were stained in blood, giving them a color that matched her hair. Upon closer inspection Tsunade saw that she was an auto nin, which caused her eyes to harden. They were both alive thankfully, though they weren't out of the woods yet, literally. It took all of 5 seconds to come to a decision regarding the situation and quickly made a shadow clone. Tsunade and her clone picked the two up after she finished patching them up as much as she could and they set off towards Konoha. You had better buy me some sake for making me worry, Yugito-chan. Chapter 16. The Musical Whirlpool. Fire Country. Konoha Hospital. The mission was a failure. It turns out that Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura had betrayed them all. They had abandoned Konoha and with the help of the Sound Five managed to escape into Sound Country. With the aid of the team from Suna, the Sound Five were all eliminated aside from the one that was captured, Tayuya. Tsunade had healed Lee's wounds and he had aided the squad leader Shikamaru during his battle with the leader of the Sound Five, Kagaya Kimimaro. While Lee faced the bone-wielding Auto Nin, Shikamaru headed off after Sasuke and Sakura to the Valley of the End. When he got there, however, things didn't exactly go as planned. Sasuke explained that he only wanted power and wounded Shikamaru with Chidori. Truthfully, if it were not for the quick thinking of Inara, then the attack would have most likely killed him there and then. Naruto may have survived it and perhaps Gaara and Yugito might have also, but a normal human wouldn't have been able to. It was a good job as was only a glancing hit. The two traitors escaped into Sound Country and Shikamaru knew he couldn't do anything about it. He passed out just as the medics arrived and attended to him before bringing him back to Konoha. He had surprisingly sustained the least damage during the mission of all the members on the team. He was released soon after and had gone to check on the others that were in the hospital also. Choji and Neji had the most injuries because of the physical wounds, both external and internal. Yugito was close behind, having practically had her skin burned away and her chakra network having been pushed to the extreme. Kiba was bedridden like the others, but his wounds weren't life-threatening and they said he could leave in a few days. There was nothing you could have done, Kakashi said as he appeared beside the young Nara. If it were Naruto that was leading the team, then we wouldn't have failed and none of us would be injured, Shikamaru countered, knowing how far his friend would go to keep them all alive. Well, you're not Naruto. You're you, and this time you were thrust into a situation out of your control. As for the mission, they were my students. If anyone is to be blamed for their leaving, it would be me. I am the one who trained them after all, Kakashi told him. Shikamaru shook his head at that. Perhaps it's not anyone's fault this happened. They wanted to leave, and they did. Yes. And now I have to write up a Nukanen form for them both. The Hokage turned and headed towards the security section of the hospital, where the prisoner was located. Yugito groaned as her eyes fluttered open. The effort alone caused her to wince. The light shone through the window, which made her ask why it was even there. I mean, what's the point in it other than to make its patients miserable? She shifted slightly and sat up with great effort, sending painful jolts throughout her arms. I hate hospitals. Oh, the irony. Why did you choose to become a medic nin? Tsunade asked from the chair to the side. It was a good idea at the time. Yugito groaned and painfully turned over to face her. How long was I out? 3 days, the Katsuyu Sennin answered. You gave me quite the scare for a while there. It's a good job you have the Nibi inside you, or you would be dead right now. Oh, well, what happened exactly? I remember fighting that Uzumaki and then everything went blank. Where is she? Yugito asked as she painfully sat back up. So you already know. It was a statement, not a question. We just ran a DNA check on her. She's definitely an Uzumaki, but we weren't able to find a name. Any idea where she came from? She can't be from Whirlpool country. Kyuubi would have attacked when she was a baby or something, the Kumo Chunin asked. Tsunade nodded at that. Jiraiya and I checked Whirlpool country several times over. There was no one left when it was destroyed, and even if there was, you just can't leave Whirlpool country, at least not by regular means. Hell, the only way in or out is to either reverse summoning or walking the whole way. Ships can't get anywhere near it because of the large number of whirlpools in the area. They're so strong they can destroy a freighter in a matter of minutes. So if she's not from Whirlpool country, then where is she from? Yugito asked with a frown. Tsunade took a few seconds before responding. You already know. She's Kushina-sama's daughter, isn't she? Yugito asked with a sigh. Tsunade nodded. Yes, she is. So that makes her Naruto's sister, as well as the Yondaime Hokage's daughter, Yugito mused, surprising the Sannin. Please don't insult my intelligence, Shisho. All Uzumakis have red hair. Naruto doesn't. Tsunade sighed, clearly feeling her age for once. That leaves a question though. How the hell was she born when I know for a fact that Minato and Kushina only had one child? Tsunade asked the one question she wasn't able to answer. Yugito looked over at her. I think a better question is, how did she end up in Orochimaru's forces? We're just going to have to ask her. Let me fucking go now. Tayuya shouted as the Anbu forcefully restrained her. Kakashi stood in front of her bed with his arms crossed. I said let me go. You're in no position to demand anything. The Hokage shot back as the Anbu tied her to the bed so she couldn't escape. He motioned for the Anbu to leave. Hawk, Cat, you're both dismissed. What are you going to do to me? Couldn't you have just killed me outright? Why did you have to prolong my suffering? The redhead asked with a faltering glare. I didn't have you executed because I need information. Information that only you have, Kakashi began. I want to know where you came from. Whirlpool country was destroyed years ago and there hasn't been an active Rinnegan besides Jiraiya-sama's 2 students. The Rinnegan is considered a random mutation which only appears once every 5 generations for an Uzumaki outside of the royal family, and even then it always dies out eventually. Only the royal family has ever been able to sustain it, and I've had my people do a DNA match for you. Your DNA matches with Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato. 2 very important figures to Konoha and to me, he continued. Knock knock. Enter, Kakashi said, not taking his eyes off of the redhead. An obviously injured Yugito entered a moment later with Tsunade, all right on time. What is she doing here? Tayuya spat as she saw the blonde girl she had been fighting. She's here because I want her here, Kakashi said plainly. He turned to the redhead and continued. Now why don't you tell me where you came from and we'll continue from there, okay? Why should I tell you anything? Tayuya shot back. Because it's either that or I turn you over to Ibiki and let him play with you. Anko might even join in. Now Tayuya may not have heard of Ibiki, but she sure as hell knew about Anko. You didn't last long as an Auto Nin without learning of the hubby Senin's old apprentice. Alright, I'll talk. Jackass, Tayuya muttered the last part bitterly. My name is Uzumaki Tayuya, and yes, I admit I have the Rinnegan. As for where I come from, I don't know, okay? The pedophile found me during a raid on Iwagakure no Sato 7 years ago, she explained. Unknown to her, Kakashi's Sharingan was focusing in through his hite and could tell she wasn't lying. I see. You say? He questioned. Tayuya responded mockingly, yes I say. The Hokage sighed at the answer. Iwa huh? I can't believe you lied to me, Minato-sensei. True, we had just finished fighting a war with them, but still. You should have told me. He turned to her again and asked, how old are you? 14. Why? What's that got to do with anything? Tayuya's voice almost sounded insulted. Then I think I know how you ended up in Iwa, Kakashi said with a sigh. Tsunade shot him a curious glance. You know something, Kakashi? The Hokage nodded. After the Third Great Shinobi War, Kushina-sama was pregnant. This was before they married and he was still my sensei. How come I didn't hear any of this? Tsunade demanded. Kakashi shook his head at her. I only found out by accident and Minato-sensei told me that it was a miscarriage, so I didn't bring it up again. Well, I think this little brat is living proof that it wasn't a miscarriage, the Sannin said, gesturing to the bedridden girl. Kushina-sama was captured by Iwa after the war. She was missing for weeks before Minato-sensei found her and killed her captors. If she was going to give birth, it would have been then, Kakashi said, shaking his head. So what? They kept my mother alive just so that she could what? Give birth to me? Tayuya demanded. Kakashi shook his head again. No. They most likely wanted to turn you into a living weapon to be used by Iwa. Imagine it. The Rinnegan alone makes you very valuable, but being Minato-sensei's daughter too? That's practically asking them to turn you into breeding stock. She felt like she was going to throw up at that. It would have been the ultimate form of vengeance upon Minato-sensei. Didn't go as planned, I bet, or she wouldn't have ended up with Orochimaru, Tsunade said as she leaned against the wall. So what went wrong? You mentioned Orochimaru raided them and got you. He had to have known you had the Rinnegan, so why didn't he use you as one of his bodies? Me? A body? You don't know him at all, do you? He may be sadistic and cruel, but he doesn't do anything without a reason too. He knew about the Rinnegan, but he didn't want it. He wants to learn every jutsu in the world. To do that he needs the Sharingan. A Rinnegan is useless to him if he can't copy jutsu, Tayuya said bitterly. You don't like him, do you? You don't like him because he considers you to be second best, Yugito asked as she looked the redhead over. What was your first clue? The bastard does sick experiments on anything he can get his hands on. When he gave me the curse seal, it was to ensure my loyalty to him. Tayuya grumbled the last part. Well, that's funny because your curse seal is gone. Tsunade spoke up upon hearing that last part. Tayuya looked up at that, then checked her shoulder. How? The only time he destroys them is when the user is dead. Tsunade smirked at that. That's the thing. You were clinically dead when we brought you in. Why, you mean I'm free? The young Uzumaki hoped this wasn't some sick joke. From his influence, yes. Free from us though? Not a chance, Kakashi declared simply. From where I'm standing, you have two options. You can either be locked up or you can become a Konoha nin on probation until I deem it time for you to become a full kunoichi of this village. Tayuya along with the other two were surprised at the second option. Well, I would rather not be thrown in a cell. Nice to hear it. Kakashi's face instantly brightened with a creepy sunshine genjutsu behind him. As soon as you've recovered, report to my office. He left a moment later with the two blondes in tow. What was that about? Tsunade demanded, looking back at the room. Konoha could always do with another Rinnegan. Something tells me she will be a very powerful ally one day. I also owe it to Minato-sensei and Kushina-sama, Kakashi answered simply as he walked. You're playing a very dangerous game, Hokage-sama, Tsunade warned him. A game I intend to win, Tsunade Dono, was his response. Wind Country. Setsuna City ruins. Is this it? The young blonde asked as he looked over the decaying ruins of the largest city in the elemental countries. The old Sennin beside him nodded at his side. Yes, it is. It'll do. When do we start? The blonde Chunin asked. The Gamma Sennin was already ahead of him. Let's find a place to stay first and set up camp. Once we do that, we'll start on what I have planned. This isn't going to be a walk in the park for you. Namikaze Naruto. Chapter 17. Home at last. Fire Country. Konoha, main gates. The village hidden in the leaves was a village of peace despite being a military fortress to the outside world. Being a ninja village meant it had a lot of blood on its hands and was considered by many to be the most powerful of them all. In the 3 years since the failed Suna Auto joint attack, all the damage to the village had been repaired and it was prospering again. Things had been quiet lately. The rest of the Konoha 10, meaning all of the rookies besides Sasuke and Sakura, were now Chunin or higher. Hyuga Neji, for example, was a full Jonin and had been considered the best out of the small group. Man, he is in for a wake-up call. At the front gates, a pair of very familiar figures were entering the village. One was a man in his mid-50s dressed in red with white-gray hair. The guards on duty immediately recognized this man as Jiraiya of the Sannin, a living legend if there ever was one. The second person, however, was a young 15-year-old blonde man wearing a red trench coat with black flames covering the bottom of it. Under it was a black-orange jumpsuit and he had 6 distinct whisker-like marks on his cheeks. Naturally, the guards recognized him as Uzumaki Naruto, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, successor of the Rikudo Sennin, living legacy of the Yondaime Hokage and student of the Gamma Sennin Jiraiya. That's quite a resume for a kid who graduated last in his class. He paid them no heed as he passed, too consumed with excitement at finally being home again. However, the excitement he felt was more towards finally meeting the one person in all of the elemental countries that he wished to see again. Not wasting any time, he jumped high and landed on top of a large post overlooking the village. Jiraiya smirked as he watched his student, the image of the boy's father overlaying his form. Hello Konoha. The blonde Maelstrom yelled happily with his arms out. Home is where the heart is ha-ero senin. Jiraiya snorted and leaned against the post. Sure it is. Why do you think I'm on the road all of the time? Naruto chuckled at that, because you're searching for inspiration for your books. How true, a voice said from the building behind him. Naruto turned to see Kakashi sitting on the balcony reading an Ichiraku book. Long time no see Naruto. You've grown up I see, it's good to see you again. You too Hokage-sensei, Naruto said a little too cheerfully as he jumped over. Please don't call me that, Kakashi groaned upon hearing the nickname. You haven't changed at all, Naruto said as he landed on the balcony. Oh I almost forgot, I got something to give you. He pulled out an orange book which Kakashi instantly recognized. N Naruto Yu. How did Yu? For someone to bring the Hokage down to a collection of barely coherent words in a matter of seconds is a feat in and of itself. It's the latest in the series and the first in 3 years. I thought you'd like it even though I think it's boring. I could have done better, the blonde told him. It's so beautiful, tears were running down Kakashi's face as he cradled the book in his hands. Naruto just chuckled, now, I could do with some ramen. He jumped down a moment later and started towards his favorite ramen stand. Kakashi dropped down beside Jiraiya and they made to follow. How good is he? The question was simple. Good enough to face you on even ground in an all-out fight, the Gamma Sennin answered. It was the best I could do in only 3 years, unlike with Minato who I trained for 6 years. Leadership skills? The Hokage asked as they walked. He knows when to joke around and when to be serious, Jiraiya told him. Holy! Naruto exclaimed as he turned a corner. There, standing in the middle of the street beside Senju Tsunade and a red-haired girl he didn't know was Ni Yugito. The Kumo nin turned and stuttered upon seeing him, and Naruto? Wow, was all he said as he gave her a once-over. She was taller and still wore cloths similar to the ones she wore 3 years ago but they were more purple now than black. She'd definitely grown judging by her looks too. Naruto had to beat down his perverted side just to stop himself from having a nosebleed. Jiraiya was able to hold up a lot better since Tsunade went through the same thing. You've grown, Yugito said, breaking the silence. So have you. More beautiful I mean, Naruto corrected himself. Yes I know, Star Wars Anakin and Padme. And you're a charmer now too. Idiot, Yugito said with a smirk. Naruto gave a mock cringe, did you miss me? With every jutsu so far, she shot back. You wound me so, Naruto gave a mock look of hurt as he placed his hand on his chest. So you're Uzumaki Naruto? The redhead asked getting his attention. Somehow I was expecting something more than a shithead, she scoffed. Naruto frowned at her. Actually it's Namikaze Naruto now and who the hell are you exactly? I'm, well, a friend of this bitch here, she said gesturing to Yugito. Don't mind her, she's just being herself, Yugito waved the comment off. If you say so, Naruto shrugged at that. Enough with the emotional reunion. Tsunade sighed from the side. Kakashi closed his book at that and caught their attention. All right Naruto. I'm putting you through the Jonin exam today, as in right now. From here on out, playtime's over. Naruto nodded before asking, where are Sasuke and Sakura? I would have thought I'd have run into them by now, Naruto asked. Yugito didn't know how to answer. Naruto. I think there's something you should know about that. Fire Country. Konoha, training ground. The Kakashi and Naruto arrived at the training field later that day. The Hokage having a pair of bells attached to his waist as they entered. They made their way to the clearing in the center where 3 wooden posts stood in the center. The rules are the same as before, you can use whatever tactics you want in order to get the bells from me. You have until sunrise tomorrow, Kakashi said as his former student approached the posts. This place. It brings back memories. I can't believe that Sasuke and Sakura would turn traitor, Naruto said shaking his head. Kakashi sighed at the memory of his other former students. I didn't want to believe it either. But they did. Just ask Shikamaru. Naruto turned to him, when I see them again I'll make them pay for betraying us. Kakashi snapped his book closed, there is no need in thinking about that right now. Let's begin shall we? Naruto grinned and tightened his hite on his head. You won't be able to read your book this time Hokage-sensei. Kakashi smirked and lifted his hite to reveal his Sharingan. I get the feeling. that this is going to take more effort than last time. You're right. Naruto exploded from the ground with his signature attack in hand. Rasengan, he called out as he hit Kakashi right in the chest. Kakashi, however, exploded into smoke, signifying it was a shadow clone. Trying to end it early? The Hokage asked from behind him. Naruto looked over his shoulder and saw his former sensei ready to plunge a kunai into his stomach. I didn't say, start, yet. Naruto just grinned. You didn't say I couldn't start yet either. Another Naruto had somehow appeared behind Kakashi. Your move, Hokage-sensei. Kakashi took notice of the clone behind him. You've improved. He disappeared in a poof of smoke and Naruto dismissed his clone also. Come out wherever you are. The area was silent as the blonde looked around cautiously. You're not left. You're not right, you're not above, so that leaves below. He slammed his hand into the ground. Doden, Doryukatsu. The ground erupted upwards for a moment before slitting in two, revealing a surprised Kakashi in the center. You can't escape my eyes, sensei. Kakashi smiled under his mask. You've grown quite well, Naruto. Now I don't have to hold back. He disappeared in a burst of speed and reappeared above the blonde, Reikari. Naruto's eyes widened and he disappeared in a flash of yellow, Shunpo no Jutsu. Naruto skidded a few feet away as Kakashi touched down on where he had been standing moments ago. That was a little too close. That wasn't Hiraishin no Jutsu you just used, Kakashi commented with his Sharingan spinning. It's something I've been working on since my fight with Gaara. Naruto shrugged as his eyes flashed gray for a moment. Yes, but I can already see its weakness. It all depends on how fast your opponent can react, Kakashi stated. Naruto didn't respond to that. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hundreds of shadow clones appeared around them and charged. Kakashi saw them coming, however, and reacted the way he normally did when outnumbered. He outmaneuvered them and seemingly effortlessly destroyed them using nothing but taijutsu. It took 27 minutes to eliminate them all and he never took his eyes off of the original Naruto. Kakashi jumped high onto one of the branches and looked down at the blonde who stood amongst what was left of his clones. Once he was in position, Naruto executed his plan. He formed a set of hand seals and attacked. It was one of the two most powerful wind jutsus in his arsenal, which he learned when they were in Wind Country 2 years ago. This plan he created wasn't meant to hurt his opponents, it was meant to stop them in their tracks. Futon. Kazuryuden no Jutsu, Naruto whispered as he launched his attack. At first Kakashi thought it was the Kyuubi, but when he turned he was met with the sight of a large dragon made of wind barreling at him. The Hokage was obviously surprised at that attack and narrowly evaded as the dragon crashed through the forest, blowing away trees and forcing Kakashi back to the ground. This was followed by Naruto jumping high into the air and launching his next attack. Futon. Rinkuden, an Oni jutsu designed by the Ichibi no Tanuki. Suna no Shukaku, which could be used by humans. Sadly, most weren't able to use it effectively because of the chakra requirements. In fact, Jiraiya was only able to use it once a week because it drained all of his chakra with a single usage. Because of the Kyuubi, Naruto didn't have that problem, however. Kakashi disappeared into the ground just before it impacted. Doden. Mogaragakure no Jutsu. There was an echoing explosion as trees and dirt was blown away under Naruto's seemingly endless onslaught. After the dust settled, Naruto stood in the center of the small crater he had created and was using his Rinnegan to track Kakashi underground. Just then Kakashi exploded from the ground behind him with a fist covered in lightning. Reikari, he called out as he made to stab the blonde. Naruto knew he couldn't dodge this time, so he fell back on his defenses. Shinra Tensai. The blast of gravity flung Kakashi back into the trees again, but he recovered quickly and stood up straight once again. Your reaction time with the Rinnegan has gotten better. Your use of different elemental jutsu also shows how much you've improved. I'll even go as far as to say I underestimated you, but you still haven't got a bell yet. Having been around Jiraiya of the Sannin for 3 years, Naruto was no stranger to mind games, so he knew when to shrug off what his opponent was saying. Even so, he knew he was reaching his limit. He'd been using nothing but high-level jutsus since this fight started and knew that the large amount of shadow clones he had created earlier had used up a good portion of his chakra reserves. He would need to end this soon or he would lose, and they both knew it. The only other option he had was to retreat and wait for his reserves to regenerate, but knew Kakashi would just follow him wherever he went. Just then he and Kakashi locked eyes and suddenly the world around him disappeared only to be replaced by Kyuubi rampaging through what looked like Konoha. Naruto placed his hands in a seal, expelled a large blast of chakra, Kai. The genjutsu shattered and Naruto saw that his surroundings had returned to normal. "You broke out of my genjutsu. That's good, but we both know that Itachi is better," Kakashi stated. "Well then let's try this." He suddenly shot a dog made of lightning towards the blonde. It dissipated the moment it touched Naruto. "I see you've been able to make your jutsu automatic now, so you don't have to consciously control it all the time." Naruto raised his hand and whispered, "Bansho Tenin." Kakashi was suddenly being pulled towards Naruto, who now held out another spiraling sphere of chakra, Rasengan. The moment his attack hit, Kakashi phased out of existence and turned into sparks of lightning. The electricity that was released shocked every nerve in Naruto's body, causing him to fall to his knees as the real Kakashi moved in to finish the job. The moment he was within range, however, 4 seals quickly activated on the ground around the Hokage, forcing him to stop. "A Fubaku Hojin, huh? Using your own body as bait and then luring me into this. A very effective trap if a bit reckless," Kakashi mused as one of Naruto's clones appeared and pulled the real Naruto away from him. "This won't hold me for long, Naruto, you know that." "It doesn't have to." Naruto grunted in pain, held up his hand. Bansho Tenin. The bells were suddenly pulled away from Kakashi and into Naruto's hand. "It doesn't matter if you can beat me, sensei. I still win by default." Kakashi chuckled at that and clicked his fingers. The seals around him were destroyed and he walked over to the blonde. "Congratulations, Naruto, you just made Jonin. You parents would be proud." Naruto gave out a sigh of relief. "Don't worry about the jutsu I hit you with. It will wear off in a little while." Chapter 18. Team Maelstrom. Fire Country. Konoha, Marketplace. "You know, shithead, I had pegged you out as having more guts than brains, but to use your own body as bait? That really takes the cake. What the hell were you thinking?" Tayuya asked as she, Yugito and Naruto made their way through the village. Naruto just shrugged. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Yugito sighed at that. "You're still a reckless idiot." "Oh man, I am starving. Come on, let's get some Ichiraku ramen," Naruto groaned. "Does that mean you're paying?" Yugito asked him as they walked. Naruto looked over his shoulder. "Well, I do have some money on me, but it might be a little close." "Define a little," Yugito said with narrowed eyes. Fortunately, he was interrupted when a pair of familiar ninja appeared through the crowd. "Oh hey, it's Shikamaru and Temari. Hey you two, over here. Look at who decided to show up at the front gates this morning." "Naruto?" Shikamaru asked in surprise. "Hey Shikamaru, are you two on a date or something?" Naruto asked as he looked between him and the Suna nin beside him. Shikamaru shook his head. "Not even close." "Oh please, like I would ever. It's almost time for the Chunin exams again, and since I'm the Suna ambassador I'm being forced to attend. This lazy bum is supposed to be my escort," Temari explained. "Chunin exams, huh? I just finished my Jonin exam this morning. I take it everyone else are Chunin now?" Naruto asked. "Mostly though, Neji, Lee, Yugito, Kankuro, this lady here and I are all Jonin now," the Nara explained. "What about Gaara?" Naruto asked them. "He's the case cage now," Temari was the one who answered. "Damn, he beat me to it. Oh well, I'll get there eventually." Naruto sighed at the information. "So you understand what I'm asking of you?" Kakashi asked as he leaned back in his chair. The Hokage's office hadn't changed much except for the atmosphere in the room. "I understand, Hokage-sama," the Anbu standing in front of him responded. "Then hand in your mask. While you are on the team your codename will be Yamato," Kakashi told him. The Anbu removed his mask and placed it on the desk. "Yamato. An interesting name." "Knock knock. Come in," Kakashi called and the door opened. Naruto, Yugito and Tayuya entered a moment later. "You're late." "Sorry, there was a black cat in the street so we had to take the long way around," Naruto said simply. Kakashi eyes smiled at that with some kind of sunshine genjutsu behind him. "Ah, so you finally met Sakuya-chan." Naruto blinked. That was its name? Tayuya groaned as she watched the exchange. "They're a pair of idiots." "You've left me with quite a job this time, senpai," Yamato sighed. Yugito didn't comment, having already gotten used to them both. Anyway, back to business, Kakashi coughed. With Sasuke and Sakura no longer with us, I am assigning Yamato here and Tayuya to Team Naruto under your command, Naruto. Naruto nodded in understanding. Have you got a mission for us? Kakashi was about to speak when a commotion outside of the door drew his attention. A moment later, the door burst open to reveal a slightly exhausted decoder nin. Eureka! Godem-sama. Terrible news. We just received word that the case cage has been kidnapped by Akatsuki, Eureka explained, surprising the group. Team Naruto, I believe you have your first mission. Head to Suna. Assess the situation and report back to me. Then assist in the recovery of the case cage, Kakashi ordered. Yes, sir. 10 minutes later at the main gates, Team Naruto were ready to head out with Tsunade, Kakashi and Iruka there to see them off. Good luck, Iruka told them. Thanks, Naruto said as he turned away. Try to keep them in line, Yugito-chan, Tsunade said to her apprentice. I'll try, Yugito responded. Come on, let's go already, Tayuya said impatiently. Just then a white and red blur dropped down in front of them. Hey Naruto. Are you going on a mission? Jiraiya asked. Yeah, we're heading out to Suna now, Naruto explained. Ah, so you already know about the case cage, Jiraiya stated. He turned to Kakashi. Is it wise to send these two? Kakashi took a moment to respond. Maybe not, but I'm confident that they'll be fine. If you say so, Jiraiya sighed and motioned for Naruto to follow him. Come over here for a second, Naruto. The blonde did as told and they walked a few feet away, out of eavesdropping range. Don't push your luck when it comes to Akatsuki. They aren't to be taken lightly, and please do not use that jutsu. You remember what happened last time, right? Naruto sighed and nodded. I know, Arrow Sennin. You don't have to remind me. I was in a hospital bed for a week after it. I won't use it unless I have to. Jiraiya sighed. I suppose that's the best I'm going to get. Good luck. Thanks for everything, Jiraiya-sensei, Naruto said and turned away, for once saying his real title. Let's go, he said, and the team took off into the trees. After traveling for about 30 minutes, they came across a figure walking through the forest. Hey, it's Tamari, Yugito said, and the team dropped down beside the Sunakunoichi. Huh? Tamari turned to them in surprise. What are you four doing out here? It's a long story. Wind Country. Suna, main entrance. The team plus Tamari dashed across the dunes at inhuman speeds, trailing dust and sand behind them. It had taken them 3 days to reach Suna and they were only now just arriving. They arrived at the village a few minutes later and were approached by a slightly panicking Suna-janin. Tamari-sama, you've returned. Please right this way, the Suna-janin said frantically. She led them through the village towards the hospital while explaining the situation. Case Cage-sama was kidnapped, as I'm sure you're aware, but Kankuro-sama chased after them and has been poisoned. Kankuro too? Tamari asked, horrified that her two brothers had been beaten so badly. How long does he have? About a day at the most, the Suna-janin answered. Let me see him. I might be able to help, Yugito said, taking a step forward. They made their way to the room where Kankuro was being held and quickly approached the bed. The room was filled with doctors and several elders who seemed surprised at their arrival. An elder woman spotted Yugito and immediately lunged right at her. Naruto appeared between them, however, in a flash of yellow light and knocked her back as Yugito regained her footing. It's been a while, slug woman, the elder woman said. Another elder held up his hand. Look closely, sister. Despite her looks, she is not Tsunade-san. The woman focused for a moment before laughing it off. Oh, I see. Sorry, my dear. You just look so much like that slug woman, I mistook you for her. Yugito shook her head and turned to Kankuro. Whatever. Naruto sighed and turned to Yugito, who was now working on Kankuro. How is he? Yugito used her medical ninjutsu to extract what looked like a blob of dark substance from the Suna-nin's chest and sealed it in a small container a moment her. He's not out of the woods yet, but I have extracted the poison. I still need to get rid of the remaining toxins in his system, Yugito explained as she placed the container down on the table to the side. Can one of the other medic nins do it? We're on timer here, Naruto asked her. Yugito nodded. The only thing people need is the supplies and the right formula. Let me write it down and we can go. How do we track these freaks? Tayuya asked from the side. That's simple, Naruto said as he placed a hand on Kankuro's head and closed his eyes. His eyes opened again to reveal the Rinnegan glowing as he concentrated. Akatsuki's general direction is towards the north. Seems like they may be using an old cave system to hide long enough to extract Shukaku. How did you do that? Yugito asked, surprised. All modern-day ninjutsu is descended from the teachings of the Rikudo Sennin and the Rinnegan. Where do you think the Yamanaka ability to read minds came from? Naruto responded. That's pretty hand, Tayuya said with a frown. Why don't I have that ability? Tamari said one last thing before the team could leave. Wait, I'm going with you. No, Tamari, I will be representing Suna during this escapade. You need to stay here and look after everything while we go search for Gaara. The old woman from before, besides it's been so long since I've taken care of my adorable grandchild. Grandchild? Naruto questioned. Sasori of the Red Desert. It appears my grandson has joined these, Akatsuki, I want to meet him again, the woman explained. You got a name, old lady? Tayuya asked bluntly. Call me Chio and do not call me old. To be young again, she muttered the last part. But, Tamari said with clenched fists. Naruto, Yugito, Tayuya. Please bring back Gaara. Naruto just waved it off, don't worry about it. I'm going to become the next Hokage, but for now I'll settle for the case cage owing me a favor. Let's move out, Naruto ordered, and the team plus Chio made their way out of the village and towards the mountains to the north of the desert. Everyone stop now, Naruto ordered, and the team entered a large clearing. A shadowy figure stood a few meters away, staring at them. Oh crap. Is that? Yugito trailed off as she recognized him. He's wearing an Akatsuki cloak. Who is this bastard? Tayuya asked as she looked the man over. Those eyes. Chio mused when she saw the red tint in the man's eyes. Uchiha Itachi, Naruto declared as his own eyes shifted into the form of the Rinnegan. You got a lot of nerve, showing yourself like this. Naruto-kun, Yugito-chan. It's been a long time. Itachi's voice was harsh and seemingly uninterested. Not long enough, Naruto shot back. I'm here to take you both in, Naruto-kun, Itachi stated clearly. You can try. Naruto shot back and the world around him suddenly exploded in smoke. It died a moment later to reveal his team on the ground unconscious. What did you? Genjutsu has to be. You cannot win, Naruto-kun, Itachi said as his body turned into a collection of hawks. Kai, Naruto expelled a blast of chakra, but it was no use. Damn, it didn't work. Guess I'll have to go with my backup plan, Naruto muttered before taking out a kunai and stabbing himself in the leg. The illusion shattered around him and he pulled out the kunai as the wound healed. Using self-inflicted harm to escape my genjutsu? Interesting, Itachi mused. If you like that, then you're going to love this. Raiden. Rainami, 2 bolts of lightning shot out of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's hands and sent Itachi crashing into the ground, dust blowing up behind him as he struck the surface. I see you got a few new tricks, Yugito smirked when the attack died down. Everyone fall back into the trees. Naruto ordered the group and they jumped back into the trees. Any advice on kicking this guy's ass, old hag? Tayuya asked. Chio snorted, just don't look into his eyes and you'll be fine. And don't call me an old hag. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. The large fireball came from above them. Watch out, Yugito warned, and they broke apart. Fujutsu Kyuin, Naruto said as the fireball seemed to dissolve when it touched his hands. So it appears you've mastered the ability to absorb ninjutsu also. Impressive considering your age, Itachi commented as he came from the side and aimed a punch for Naruto's head. Shunpo no Jutsu, Naruto Flash stepped away in order to create some distance between them and formed a hand seal. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, dozens of shadow clones suddenly popped into existence around them. Itachi dispatched the first clone that came at him from the side. Another dropped down from above and made to stab him with a kunai. Itachi fell back, evading the attack, and knocked the clone away. 3 more clone came from below this time and knocked him skyward just as several other clones jumped to intercept him. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. A large fireball exploded from Itachi's mouth and incinerated the shadow clones below, setting the forest on fire as well. Itachi then spun in midair and destroyed the remaining clones before finally landing on one of the tree branches. Most impressive, Naruto-kun. Odama Raikyu. Itachi jumped away moments before a ball of lightning struck the branch he stood on. Yugito appeared to hover in place above them, using what looked like fire manipulation to remain airborne. Futon. Daitappa. The wide blast of wind knocked down several trees and hurled a surprised Itachi back into the clearing. Naruto dropped down in front of him as he got back up. "We've got you outnumbered, Itachi, surrender." Itachi didn't reply and instead formed several hand seals. That was when Naruto felt a pull and looked down to see that his arms and legs were encased in thin metal wires. "Kaden. Karyu Enden." Itachi called out as fire erupted down the wires in the shape of a dragon, causing Naruto's eyes to widen in surprise. "Shinra Tensai." The words were not spoken by him, but the flames were snuffed out just the same. He looked behind him to see Tayuya standing there with a very familiar set of eyes. "You have the Rinnegan," Naruto said upon seeing it. He turned back to Itachi, whom was also surprised at this development. "We'll talk about this later." Tayuya nodded just as Yugito dropped down behind the Uchiha and two of Naruto's clones appeared at his side. "Raiden. Raimu," Yugito exclaimed as she threw a spear of lightning straight through the Nukanon's shoulder. Yugito dropped back with the others as Itachi's body was shocked until it was unable to move on its own. "Finish him." Naruto held out his hand to the two clones and they immediately started charging the jutsu he still has yet to perfect. Chakra spiraled in his hand, which was soon followed by the wind itself, creating a sickening bell-like screech. He shot forward and slammed the glowing white jutsu into the Uchiha's stomach. Itachi gave a smile as his world was consumed in light. Futon. Rasengan. Everyone covered their eyes as the countryside was reduced to a small crater. The dust soon cleared to reveal the crater and a disfigured person in the center of it. Naruto paid no heed to the looks he was getting from his team concerning his last jutsu and instead approached the body. Whoever it was not Itachi. That was too easy. Chapter 19. The Crimson Whirlpool. Fire Country. Konoha, Hokage Tower. "Where do we stand on this team?" Kakashi asked as he leaned back in his chair lazily with Jiraiya and Tsunade in front of him. "Naruto still needs a bit of work, nothing serious, well except senjutsu training. I couldn't fit it in the time we were given," Jiraiya sighed. "He's recreated some jutsu I think he got from the Rinnegan and I have taught him a few jutsu for each element. I admit I was reluctant to teach him ninjutsu, but he needed help to control the Rinnegan. Unlike the Sharingan, the Rinnegan doesn't actually copy a jutsu if it sees one but instead allows its users to learn it." "I see. Anything else you would like to mention?" Kakashi asked after a pause. "He isn't able to control Kyuubi's chakra. Yet, the Rikudo Sennin was the ancestor of the Uchiha and the Senju. Two very powerful clans who were able to control the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto is most likely the only man alive in the world right now who even has a ghost of a chance of actually controlling it. I have a feeling that Minato knew this as well," Jiraiya continued. "I've seen Naruto access Kyuubi's chakra before. He was able to remain on control before he left with you," Kakashi stated. Jiraiya nodded before continuing. "Minato split the Kyuubi's chakra into two halves. The yang half was sealed inside the containment seal with the Kyuubi's soul, and the seal on Naruto allows him to draw on its power. However, the yin half wasn't sealed in Naruto. I don't really know where the yin half of it is, but I assume it is a part of the ki itself. I'm not exactly sure why Minato split it, but I believe it has something to do with the ki." "What happened?" Tsunade was the one who asked, sensing tension in the air. "I used the ki to twist Naruto's seal so he could access more of Kyuubi's chakra, and I inadvertently released Kyuubi from its cell," Jiraiya explained, getting horrified looks from the other two occupants in the room. "Is Naruto okay? He seemed fine earlier, but if Kyuubi was released then he should be dead. Not to mention if it is out then it'll probably come after Konoha again," Kakashi asked as he got to his feet. "Relax, Kyuubi's still trapped thanks to Naruto's will and his Rinnegan. He held it off long enough for me close the opening in the seal that I made." That surprised the pair. "How? The Yamanaka couldn't even touch the thing?" Tsunade questioned. Jiraiya snorted. "Where do you think the Yamanaka's jutsu came from?" "The Rinnegan, of course. Those eyes of his allows him to read people's minds if he holds their head, and makes it extremely hard for someone to invade his mind. But like I said earlier, he can't control the Kyuubi yet. The first time he tried using 4 taels worth of power. Let's just say Setsuna's city is looking a little different this summer." Jiraiya shivered when he spoke the last part. "I thought Setsuna's city was left in ruins during the clan wars. What were you doing there?" Tsunade asked. "Training Naruto, of course. The place was abandoned and seemed like a good idea for a training ground. That city is long gone now though, Jiraiya stated. Of course it's long gone, it was reduced to a bunch of ruins during the clan wars. Tsunade nodded as she spoke. Jiraiya just scoffed. I don't mean destroyed like leaving a pile of ruins. I mean gone as in the entire city is nothing more than a load of craters now. They fell into silence after that. How many tails can he use safely? Kakashi questioned. Jiraiya sighed and answered, 3. Though he refuses to use it in case his control slips and he gets knocked unconscious. As long as he remains conscious he can control it, but since the Kyuubi's chakra is acidic, it burns a lot. If it does enough damage to him, especially if it starts affecting his brain, then he will fall unconscious and the chakra will consume him. If that happens, then Kyuubi is able to take control and will attack everything that moves, friend and foe alike. Hopefully Yamato can keep an eye on that, Kakashi sighed. I wouldn't count on it. Naruto is the only one who can suppress the chakra. It's that simple, Jiraiya finished. We'll keep an eye on him, Kakashi declared and turned to the other Sannin in the room. Well, unlike Naruto, Yugito's history over the last 2 years isn't that colorful. You should know some of it, Kakashi. You did help train her after all. She knows a few fire and lightning jutsus and her skill with medical ninjutsu is extraordinary, Tsunade stated almost smugly. Does that include your monster strength time? Jiraiya quipped. She sent him a glare for that. For your information, no it doesn't. Because she is a Jinchuriki, her chakra is in a constant state of flux just like Naruto's is thanks to Kyuubi. She may surpass me in the medical field if she's given time, but she physically cannot use her medical ninjutsu for offensive purposes. What about the Nibi? Jiraiya asked her. Tsunade nodded with a reply. She can control it. Somewhat. I wouldn't go near her when she's using it though. She knows what she's doing, but her attacks are very difficult to avoid when you are trying to assist her. Sounds like Naruto on a bad day, Jiraiya commented. What about the other member of the team? Kakashi asked after a moment of silence. If you mean that Uzumaki girl, then I'll tell you right now that is total bullshit. I'm having a pretty hard time coming to terms with the fact that she's the brat's sister. She may look like a carbon copy of Kushina-chan at that age and may even act like it, but the simple fact is that she was one of Orochimaru's personal guards. You know the guards who helped kill Sarutobi-sensei? The only reason I haven't went to interrogate her personally is because of Minato and Kushina-chan, Jiraiya stated firmly. She's older than him, Jiraiya. She also activated the Rinnegan first. By law she is the first heir to the Whirlpool country's throne, Tsunade stated clearly. There is no Whirlpool country, it was destroyed, remember? No one survived, so for all intents and purposes she is nothing but a Konoha Chunin. If you think I'm overreacting, can you imagine what Naruto's going to do when he finds out he has a sister? Currently the entirety of the elemental countries consider Naruto as a highly dangerous A-rank shinobi of Konoha and the successor of the Rikudo Sennin himself. They have for years. They won't care about this Tayuya girl with the Rinnegan because she will always be compared to him, Jiraiya explained. I am well aware of that, Tsunade nodded solemnly, knowing it was the truth. But Tayuya is a resourceful one. She'll find a way to stand on her own somehow, just like her mother. Well, she has been training under Kurenai for the last 3 years, so she should be fine on the mission, Kakashi stated from his seat. Jiraiya frowned at that. Speaking of the mission, are you sending Team Guy to reinforce them? They could do with the help. Kakashi shook his head. They're needed at that border. Otto's getting bolder and attacking more of our convoys day after day. Most of the teams in the village that are not a part of the Chunin exam security are off training. The only team I have available at the moment for any mission involving Otto is Team Guy. They're on their own for the time being, Tsunade sighed in defeat. Wind Country. Northern Forest. Okay, what the fuck was that shit stain? Tayuya shouted in shock and fear. It's something I've been working on, Naruto replied simply as the group made their way over to their fallen opponent. It's not finished though, Dad intended it to be a 6-stage process. The jutsu I just used was only stage 4, so I still have a long way to go. Not finished? It looked bitchin' to me, Tayuya commented as they looked down at what was left of Itachi. Yugito checked the body. I don't think this was Itachi, Naruto said, and the Kumo nin nodded. I thought so too. That was too easy to be Itachi, Yugito said as she crouched down beside the disfigured body. You call that easy? Tayuya questioned. Yugito nodded as her hands glowed green. 3 years ago we couldn't even touch him. I know we've gotten stronger, but there's no way we could have taken the real Itachi down like that in only a few minutes. Fireball Jutsu was created by the Uchiha clan. There's no way that can be faked, Chiyo commented. How about this then? A voice asked as a blue blur appeared behind them. Kaizuki, Yugito called out, her arm igniting in a fiery blaze as she turned. There was a loud clang as the jutsu connected massive sword the man wielded. The others jumped away as Yugito held her ground. Tayuya was the first to react and raised her hand towards the two. By some invisible force, Yugito was pulled back towards the group, surprising the newcomer. Bansho Tenon, the redhead, whispered as Yugito landed beside the team. So another Rinnegan user, huh? Kinda reminds me of Leader Sama now that I think about it. Or at least without the coldness he displays, the blue figure said with a smirk. Hoshigaki Kisame, Yugito growled out, causing his grin to widen. That's me, he said, smiling like a shark. What leader? Naruto questioned. Leader Sama is the one who founded Akatsuki, of course, Kisame said with a shrug. He has the Rinnegan too. Not that it matters right now, kid. The leader of Akatsuki has the Rinnegan? But that means he's an Uzumaki. How? Naruto thought before shaking himself. I'll worry about that later. Right now we have more important things to do, like rescuing Gaara. Raiden. Raryuden no Jutsu. Yugito threw a punch at the swordsman despite the distance, and a lightning dragon burst forth from her fist. Kisame grinned as it approached and jumped back to evade the attack. It struck where he had been standing moments ago and exploded in static and rock as he landed a few feet away. His grin widened when he made a hand seal and opened his mouth wide. Let's dance, little kiddies, he cackled, and water exploded from his mouth in a massive wave. Sweden. Bakusu Shoha. Water flooded the area, forcing group to jump onto the trees above in order to not get caught in it. Everyone be careful, we don't know where he'll appear, Naruto told the others. How right you are, kid, Kisame said, appearing behind them. The team turned quickly, but they simply weren't fast enough. Suiro no Jutsu. Suddenly the water shot out from below and encased Naruto, Yugito and Yamato in balls of water. Kisame used his water clones to maintain the spheres as he turned his attention to the still free Tayuya, whom had managed to escape and land a few feet away. Damn, he caught us, Naruto gritted his teeth as he felt his chakra slipping away with each passing moment. I can't concentrate enough to pull off a Shinra Tensai, and with the way this thing is destabilizing my chakra I can't do any other jutsu either. Yugito glared at the Kiri Nukanen. There is a reason cats hate water. That Rinnegan surprised me, Red, but I'm no pushover. How about I cut off your legs? They could make a pretty nice meal, Kisame grinned as he shot forward and brought his sword down on Tayuya's position. Tayuya narrowly evaded the first strike and jumped away. Kisame was on her within seconds, however, and slashed at her again, but this time she was ready. She formed 3 hand seals that Naruto instantly recognized, and her fist was suddenly encased in lightning. Chidori, Tayuya echoed as she drove the jutsu into monstrous sword. It took only a moment for Kisame to absorb the jutsu and force her away again. Did that thing just absorb my jutsu? To answer her question, the sword burped. I think you should take that as a yes, Kisame said, grinning. Naruto watched this happen and narrowed his eyes. She could have only learned that jutsu from Hokage sensei. He must have thought her Rinnegan would make up for the weakness in the user's vision. I'll worry about that later though. I have a job to do right now. He closed his eyes and held out his hands to the wall of the water prison. Please let this work. The chakra suddenly started to drain from the water and into Naruto's body. Fujutsu Kyuin. Kisame turned surprised as the ball of water around the Naruto suddenly collapsed and the blonde stood once again. The swordsman sent an annoyed look when he went to free his team from their own prisons. He didn't let up on his assault, however, and landed a kick to Tayuya's midsection. Before she could get far, however, the swordsman grabbed her ankle and threw her straight down into the water. Let's see how you like this. Kisame hoisted Samahata onto his back and began making hand seals. He slammed his fist into the water and called out, Sweden. Gashokuzame. Suddenly 5 sharks made out of water formed beneath the makeshift lake and swam towards where Tayuya had fallen. Shinra Tensai. Tayuya exploded from the water into the air and landed on the water once more. You're good, but still a long way from Leader Sama's level, Kisame said as he shouldered his sword once again. Tayuya made several hand seals and whispered, Megan. Narakumi no Jutsu. Kisame suddenly stopped as he found himself in a genjutsu but quickly shrugged it off. It was only a distraction however and bought the time Tayuya needed to get off her next attack. Chidori! The redhead exclaimed as she drove her lightning-covered fist through the swordsman's chest and out the other end. Hey! Not bad, Red. Not bad at all. Kisame grinned as he fell back and hit the water as it dissipated. The rest of the team appeared at her side a moment later and looked over the body. Kisame suddenly disappeared and revealed a battered and bruised Tsunajonin with a hole in his chest from Tayuya's Chidori wound. It must be some kind of jutsu. Mukade retired years ago and I know he was completely loyal. There is no way someone like him would have joined my grandson willingly, Chio stated upon seeing the body. Come on, we're wasting time, Naruto said, and the group took off into the trees again. Chapter 20. Rescue Mission Part 1. Wind Country. Northern Forest. They had set up camp later that night, thinking it wouldn't be a good idea to continue on at night. They were all exhausted from their earlier confrontation with Akatsuki and knew it was only a matter of time before they extracted Shukaku and killed Gaara. They needed rest if they were going to be able to save the teenage cage before the deadline tomorrow afternoon. The campfire sparked slightly from the wood it burned and its flames rising slightly. Yamato and Chio had already fallen asleep while the rest of them were sitting quietly around the campfire. Are you going to tell me now? Naruto's voice cut through the silence. Tayuya looked at him with veiled fear. What do you think, shit stain? I think you're an Uzumaki, but I was told all of them died in Whirlpool country. Now I find out that not only you have the Rinnegan but also the leader of Akatsuki has as well. What the hell am I supposed to think here? Naruto demanded. Well, I am an Uzumaki but... Tayuya trailed off, not knowing how to continue. But what? Naruto questioned. My parents were Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. I'm kinda she was cut off. You're my sister. Bullshit, Naruto said simply. You're really expecting me to believe after all these years that I have a long-lost sister who's been Rikudo knows where and now you come back? The two females were quieted at that. It's the truth, Naruto, Yugito told him, causing his head to snap towards her. Don't start with me, Yugito. I'm mad at you too. You should have told me the moment I got back. Not waited until we're in the middle of an S-rank mission to throw this at me, Naruto shot back. Hey, lay off her. She didn't say anything because I asked her not to, Tayuya explained, drawing his gaze back to her. I was captured by Orochimaru during a raid on Iwa after our parents died and I ended up in Konoha 3 years ago. Ero Hokage offered me a job as a kunoichi of Konoha and I took it, so here I am. Naruto just stared at her for a good 10 seconds before standing up and walking away without a word. Don't take it too personally, Tayuya, Yugito told the ex-Auto Nen. He just needs time to come to terms with this. I'm sure he'll accept you in no time. He's a good guy and I've never known him hold a grudge before. I hope you're right. His mind was in turmoil. He had a sister, a living relative of close relation, one he didn't even know about until today. His first thoughts were of betrayal, then anger at being lied to, and finally landing on confusion. What was he supposed to do? They were strangers and yet they were family. Then again, that could be said about him and Tsunade as well. He wished Eros Sennin was here. At least his godfather might have some useful advice for this bizarre situation he had found himself in. Then there was Yugito to consider. He didn't know what to think where she was concerned. He liked her, there was no denying that, but he knew he couldn't afford to grow attached to her. I mean, after what happened with Sasuke and Sakura, you couldn't exactly blame him. Those two traitors had a lot to answer for themselves. If there was one thing Naruto hated the most, it was traitors. Those who abandoned those close to them no matter the reason were not worth anything in his book, even if that reason was justified. Then there was Akatsuki to consider also. The leader of Akatsuki seemed to have the Rinnegan if what Kisame said could be believed. He couldn't be sure if the swordsman was telling the truth or not, but he had detected no hint of deception. If that was true, then Akatsuki was more of a threat than anyone had ever realized, himself included. Naruto shook himself in his futon. He had been getting off track again. For now his first priority was to rescue Gaara and return him to Suna-controlled territory while at the same time dealing with the Akatsuki agents assigned to capture the Ichibi. That's all there is to it. Wind Country. Northern caves. The team dropped down from the trees and appeared in front of what looked like some kind of red arch. Beyond it was a cliff with a boulder blocking a tunnel, and on the boulder was a paper seal of some kind. Naruto recognized it easily. It looks like a Gofu Kekai. 1 second. He looked around with his Rinnegan activated. Okay, I can see chakra papers in 4 directions around us and 3 chakra cores beyond this boulder. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 4 clones appeared at his side and each with a Rinnegan. I'm never going to get used to seeing in more than one direction at once, Naruto said as the clones took off into the trees. What are you planning on doing? Yugito asked him. Bringing down the barrier, Naruto replied and jumped up to where the seal on the boulder was located. He grabbed hold of it and waited for the clones to get into position. Once he saw the clones rip their own seals off, he did the same and the barrier fell a moment later. Naruto jumped down and formed several hand seals. Doden. Doryukatsu, Naruto whispered, and the boulder split apart to allow them entry. Well, that's one way to knock, Tayuya quipped as they entered. You're a little late, we've been waiting 5 whole minutes, a voice said, annoyed. 3 figures were seen in the now illuminated cavern. The first was a blond man with mouths in his palms and wore the signature Akatsuki cloak. The second figure was a hunched-back man who wore a mask over his face. The final figure was lying on the ground behind the pair. After a moment, Naruto spotted that the figure had red hair and assumed it was Gaara, though with the lighting in the cave being minimal it was difficult to tell. Gaara, Naruto whispered upon seeing the teenage Kage's unmoving form. The little runt was tough, but he still fell in the end. Now which of you are the Kyuubi and Nibi Jinchuriki? Deidara asked with a smile. Who do you think, assholes? Yugito shot back. Give Gaara back now, Naruto demanded. Deidara chuckled and turned to his partner. I know you don't want to hear this, Sasori, but let me play with the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. No, I will face the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. You've already fought the Ichibi Jinchuriki, so you can have the Nibi this time, Sasori told him simply. Doden. Doryukatsu, Naruto slammed his palm into the ground and the earth split in 2, separating the 2 Akatsuki members. Bansho Tenon, Tayuya followed this up instantly and pulled Gaara towards her. She caught him a moment later as the Akatsuki agents recovered. I believe he told you to give the Sandman back to us, you fuckers. That was very rude, Deidara commented in annoyance. Focus, Deidara, Sasori stated. Art is an explosion, the former Iwa Nin responded. Yamato, take Gaara and the old hag and get out of here. Head for Suna. Hopefully they've sent someone to back us up, Naruto ordered. Good luck, Yamato nodded and dashed out of the cave with the unmoving form of Gaara in his arms and Chio close behind. You're going to pay for this, you bastards, Naruto stated clearly and cracked his neck. Yugito, Tayuya. You two deal with the gender-confused weirdo over there while I deal with this doll-loving prick. Alone? Yugito asked him. Naruto nodded as his eyes flashed red. I won't be holding anything back. It's too cramped in here. I think I'll take my art outside, Deidara said as he created a dragon made of clay. He jumped on its back and it took off a moment later. It flew out of the cave entrance and arched away with Yugito and Tayuya in pursuit. Come on, let's go after him, Tayuya shouted, and they took to the trees. Back in the cave, Naruto and Sasori were staring each other down. It's just you and me now, Naruto said clearly. Sasori's cloak was cast off to reveal a massive scorpion-like puppet covering his body. What the fuck are you exactly? A puppet master, and this is my act. I call it Ichiraku, Sasori replied and launched a volley of kunai from his scorpion mouth. With his Rinnegan flaring slightly, Naruto evaded the volley and rolled to the side. You're too slow, old-timer, Naruto quipped as he finished his hand seals. Futon. Kazuryuden no Jutsu. He threw out a punch and a dragon made of wind shot out from his fist. I see the tales of your power are accurate, Sasori commented and dodged the wind dragon as it impacted where he had stood moments ago. Interesting wind jutsu. But then I expected nothing less from a wielder of the Rinnegan. The leader of Akatsuki has the Rinnegan, doesn't he? It wasn't a question. Who is he exactly? Naruto asked him. I do not know, Sasori replied uninterested. And you work for him? Naruto asked him. Sasori appeared to shrug slightly in his puppet. Fine art is something wonderful that's left long into the future, eternal beauty. I'll remember that when I carve it into your tombstone, Naruto said as shot forward. Let's go wild. Sasori held up his left arm and the arm itself shot up towards the oncoming blonde. Naruto dodged to the side at the last second and kept moving even as a wave of needles shot out of the mobile limb. Shinra Tensei, Naruto whispered and blew the needles away as he closed in on Sasori. I had forgotten about that gravity jutsu you Rinnegan users are capable of, Sasori said with the hint of irritation in his voice. A moment later he aligned his scorpion tail to pierce the blonde when he came within, my move. Kage Bunshin on jutsu. A shadow clone popped into existence beside Naruto and pulled him out of the way at the last second. The real Naruto was then able to sidestep the tail and attack directly. Rasengan, he called out as he brought down the ball of spinning chakra on his opponent. Sasori's eyes widened as his scorpion puppet was reduced to a pile of scrap, forcing him to jump out of it and land a few feet away. The real Sasori stood, wearing his Akatsuki cloak over his body, as watched the blonde Konoha kick away the remains of the puppet he had just destroyed. You know, when Chiyo Obaken said you were her grandson, I pictured you being older, around Hokage-sensei's age. But you barely look 16, Naruto commented as his clone vanished in a poof of smoke. Like I said before, fine art is something wonderful that's left long into the future, Sasori said, smiling slightly. Naruto narrowed his eyes at that. You're immortal? Maybe, the puppeteer responded vaguely. Let me show you my favorite puppet, he continued as he pulled out a scroll. This one was very hard to finish, but I managed. There was a poof of smoke as Sasori released the seal in the scroll and extracted the object it had stored away. But that's what makes me so fond of him. The smoke died down to reveal a vaguely human puppet wearing a black cloak. What the hell is that thing? Naruto asked upon seeing the puppet. Allow me to introduce you to my favorite puppet. The Sandame Cage, Sasori answered as the puppet twirled around him. A human puppet? Naruto asked, horrified. Eternal beauty is something I strive to create, Sasori said simply. That's an abomination and I'll destroy it. Here and now, Naruto snarled. You can try, Sasori responded and sent the puppet forward to attack the blonde. Naruto jumped back and evaded the strike from the blades connected to the puppet's right arm. He cursed a moment later as the Sandame descended from above and slashed downwards, forcing him to jump further back. Here goes, Sasori exclaimed as he brought the puppet's left arm up and the panels on to open to reveal seals on the inside. Senju Sobu. Dozens of wooden arms erupted from the seals in a glow of blue chakra and shot towards the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Damn it, Naruto cursed and shifted his weight to the side. Shunpo no Jutsu, he disappeared in a flash of yellow as the arms struck his previous location and he reappeared on the other side of the cave. You're fast, Sasori commented upon seeing the blonde's speed. But you cannot fool the eyes of a puppet master. We pay very close attention to detail. Judging by the slight movement you made before you executed your jutsu, I would hazard a guess that it is a one-way jutsu, making you unable to make any deviation in your intended course. Then once you came out of your jutsu, you were forced to steady yourself slightly, indicating that your speed decreases rapidly at the end of transit. Am I wrong? So you figured it out. Give the guy a reward, Naruto shot back. Damn it, he won't fall for the same trick twice. I can't use that jutsu anymore or he'll just use it against me. Sasori smirked. Shall we continue? What looked like a swarm of black sand erupted from the Sandame's mouth and floated into the air beside the puppet. Allow me to show you the power that the Sandame Cage wielded, which made him the strongest cage, the Iron Sand. This does not look good for my life expectancy, Naruto thought upon seeing the black sand move about in the air. Satetsu Shigur, Sasori shouted as the iron sand shot towards the blonde in a shower of metal. Doden. Doryuheki, Naruto exclaimed as he slammed his open hand on the ground beneath him. The ground in front of him rose up and created a wall between him and the oncoming hail of death. The iron sand slammed into the barrier repeatedly, but it held firm and protected the blonde from certain death. Insolent little child, Sasori grunted upon seeing his attack didn't have the effect he had desired. Is that the best you've got? Naruto shouted as he rested his back against the makeshift barrier. Satetsu Keshu, the puppeteer whispered, and the iron sand collected itself in mid-air to form a pair of objects. The first was a large hammer and the other was an equally large spear. Kyodai Tetsui. Oh crap, Naruto muttered and shot out of cover just as the barrier was knocked down by the hammer. Kyodaiso. Damn it, damn it, damn it, Naruto repeated as he rolled to the side, narrowly evading the large spear which lanced out at him. The iron sand suddenly backed off and was brought together near the ceiling. Now what? Prepare to die, Sasori said simply. Sorry, I'm not interested, Naruto told him and made a hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, 2 clones popped into existence beside him. He held out his hand towards the pair and they immediately started charging his next jutsu. The distinctive sound of explosions was heard as chakra and fire came together to form a quick spinning sphere in the palm of the blonde's open hand. He held it up towards the gathering of iron sand and it shot outward at high speeds. Kaden. Resenden. The fireball impacted the iron sand with a resounding bang before it exploded in a blast of heat and fire. The ceiling was blown away and the iron sand disintegrated a moment later. Sasori sent the blonde a glare once it was over and Naruto sent him a smirk in response. You shouldn't play with fire. You'll get burned, Naruto told him. A minor setback. I can always create more iron sand, Sasori told him. Naruto's smirk widened into a grin. Don't you need the sandame cage for that? Sasori's eyes widened as he turned his attention to his favorite puppet. No. Rinnegan, another Naruto struck from above with a pair of spiraling spheres which destroyed the puppet and sent its remains clattering to the rubble-covered ground. You, Sasori said with venom lacing his voice as the Naruto that he had first thought was real poofed out of existence. You really thought I was going to let you get off another jutsu? Naruto taunted. Sasori grunted at that. You're quite the odd one, Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Fine. I haven't been forced to solve a problem this way since I first joined Akatsuki. I wonder how long it's been. The Akatsuki member shed his cloak, revealing that his body definitely wasn't human any longer. You turned your own body into a puppet? Naruto asked when he saw the mix of wood, plastic and metal that was Sasori's body. It's been a while since I last used myself, the red-headed Akatsuki member stated. Chapter 21. Rescue Mission Part 2. Wind Country. Northern Caves. Sasori came in from the side with his 2 spinning blades rotating as he drew near. Naruto reacted instinctively and jumped over the attack only to get caught in the shoulder by the tail end of the cable that came at him next. He winced from the pain it caused but shrugged it off and took a look at his shoulder. It was green and he knew instantly what that meant. Your attacks are poisoned, Naruto stated. Of course, Sasori bellowed with a haunting look and pointed the tubes coming out of his hands at the blonde. Naruto ducked down under a patch of upturned earth as flames erupted from the tubes and blanketed over the area. The blonde cursed as used a kunai to open the wound in his shoulder up so it can let the poison out. Kyuubi's chakra was always slowed down whenever he was poisoned, but thankfully the foul chakra was capable of destroying almost any poison in existence. The more deadly the poison, the longer it would take to destroy it, and quite frankly he just didn't have the time to wait for Kyuubi to destroy this particular poison. Naruto stood up and dashed out of cover, Sasori's flamethrowers trying to catch him as he did. The blonde jumped a moment later as high as he could go and formed several handseals before taking a deep breath. Sasori's eyes widened as a massive blast of wind exploded from the blonde's mouth. Futon. Rinnegan. The already destroyed cave was blown away by the explosion of wind. Nearby trees collapsed also, and what was left would make a nice little lake in the future. Sasori's motionless and destroyed puppet form in the cluster of rubble. After a moment of silence, Naruto sighed and turned to leave when he felt a shift in air behind him. Turning back swiftly, he saw that Sasori's body was rebuilding itself and was soon capable of fighting again. What does it take to kill you? Naruto shouted. Sasori gave him a crazed look. Didn't I say that there was art in eternal beauty? He pulled out a scroll a moment later and opened it. Akahigi. Hyaki no Soin. Naruto could only watch as 100 puppets appeared above them. Sasori put his right hand to his face and shook his head. I once destroyed an entire country with these. To think you've pushed me this far. Naruto quickly formed a hand seal and his form exploded in chakra. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Exactly 100 shadow clones appeared all over the destroyed cave. Numbers mean nothing to me. Naruto shouted at the puppeteer. Sasori looked around with a crazed look on his face. So many clones. Once this is over, I'll add your body to my collection. The number of clones you can call on a whim will be very helpful for me. I'm going to beat your wooden ass into the ground. Naruto shouted as he and his clones shot forward. I know Ero Sennin didn't want me to use this jutsu, but I just can't think of any other way to make this guy stay down. You can try. Sasori shot back as his puppets charged. The clones and the puppets clashed as Naruto made his way through the battlefield. His clones intercepted the attacks that the puppets sent at him as he drew closer to his intended target. Two puppets came in front of him to block his path, and he threw a single kunai through the rapidly closing gap towards Sasori. Once it was through, the kunai exploded in smoke and transformed into the real Naruto, Henge no Jutsu. He formed a hand seal and a pair of clones appeared, running at his side. When did he pull off a henge? Sasori asked in surprise as Naruto came at him. What is that jutsu? He asked in thought when he heard a bell-like screech vibrate through the air and a white shuriken-like object appear in the blonde's hand. Futon. Rasen shuriken. Naruto called out as he drove the jutsu into the puppeteer's chest. There was a moment of silence before a deafening boom echoed through the area as Sasori was blown back and encased in a sphere of wind and power. The wind slashed and shredded his form before finally exploding with a massive blast of wind. The puppets all fell to the ground lifeless, and the remaining clones went to work and destroy what was left of them with explosive notes, while the real Naruto kept his gaze on the still-standing Akatsuki agent. Damn! I never expected you to use such a jutsu. I can feel it. My body is falling apart, Sasori rasped out. That's what you get when you're body into a puppet, and for the record, my jutsu isn't finished. If it was, you would already be nothing but dust right now, Naruto told him. Sasori let a smirk form on his face. Fractured, you're something else, Kyuubi Jinchuriki. I will soon die. Before that, I'll do something pointless for you. A reward for defeating me. You know Orochimaru, don't you? Naruto nodded, unsure of where he was going with it. Yes, I'm planning on killing him. Sasori's smirk widened slightly. Splendid. I have a spy in Otokage no Sato, one of Orochimaru's personal henchmen. I was supposed to meet him at the Tenchi Bridge in 10 days at noon. It looks like I won't be able to. Why are you telling me this? Naruto asked him. Because it's something pointless, Sasori answered before his body shattered into dust and drifted off a moment later. Naruto clenched his fist and stood in place for 20 seconds before a column of light erupted from the destroyed container which once held Sasori's only human component, his heart. An object hovered in place for a moment before flying at high speeds directly into Naruto's hands, causing him to skid back a little. The blonde shook himself a moment later and looked down at the object in his hands. It was a brown crystal necklace which gave him the feeling of a slow-moving wind around him. The prophecy draws near. 3 of 6, Sage. What is this? Naruto asked, looking around and then back at the necklace in his hands. You are Destiny. Child of prophecy. Last hope. Just who are you? Naruto asked the voice. No longer needed. Moon, Biju. After a few minutes of silence, it was clear that Naruto wasn't going to get any answers and put the necklace around his neck just like he did with the other two he had gotten. He turned away a moment later and took off into the trees in the direction of Suna, knowing that his teammates were no doubt in that general direction. Wind Country. Northern Forest. Yugito and Tayuya had been pursuing the airborne Akatsuki member for the better part of 15 minutes now and could still hear the distinctive sound of explosions coming from behind them where they knew was fighting this man's partner. Above them, Deidara flew atop his clay dragon and sneered back at them as he banked higher into the air above the small valley. Tayuya, get ready, Yugito told her as she ignited her arm in flames. Your move, bitch, the redhead responded with a grin. Kaden. Dai Kaizuki. Deidara's eyes widened in surprise as a long blade of fire extended out towards him. He tried to maneuver around it but was unable to dodge in time, and it sliced clean through his arm, causing him to gasp in pain. That bitch. She just took off my right arm, Deidara growled in thought before sensed a presence behind him. He turned swiftly to see Tayuya descending towards him with her fist cover in lightning. Damn it. Chidori. The redhead called out as Deidara jumped away. Tayuya cut right through the clay dragon and the two ninja dropped down into the trees below. Are you okay, Tayuya? Yugito asked as she appeared at her side. Just fucking great, the redhead responded. You two brats are pissing me off, Deidara growled at them. We'll kick your ass, bastard, Tayuya shot back. You kill innocent people and think you can get away with it? Don't even think that for a second, Yugito told him. If by innocent people you mean you Jinchuriki, let me tell you something. We've captured 2 of them already, not including that red-haired brat of a cage, and in both cases they were disgusting creatures who hated everything and were hated themselves. No one lifted a finger to help them or defend them. People were actually glad to see them go, Deidara said with a grin. All monsters don't deserve to live, just like you. Tayuya looked over at Yugito and saw the stone expression on her face. The redhead turned back to their opponent and shouted in anger, "Who are you to decide who should live and who should die? Seems to me that you're the only monster here, bastard." Tayuya, stop, Yugito told her before she could rush forward. The blonde kunoichi looked over at the Akatsuki agent again and said simply, "If anyone doesn't deserve to live here, it's you." Deidara scoffed at her, "Whatever you say, demon. You're too careless," Yugito commented with a smile that belonged on a predator. Deidara turned swiftly as he felt a figure drop in from behind him. It was another Yugito with her arm covered in flames. "Kaizuki!" she exclaimed as she sliced her jutsu through the Akatsuki member's other arm and severed it from his body. "You bitch!" Deidara roared and made to kick her. "Chidori!" Tayuya whispered as her lightning-covered fist tore through the man's back in a spray of blood. No, Deidara rasped out as Tayuya removed her hand. He fell to the ground a moment later. He didn't get up. "That was too easy," Tayuya said simply. "I know. He must have run out of clay when he fought Kage-sama," Yugito mused, remembering what they were told about the man while in Suna. She checked the man's pulse just to make certain he was dead. There was none. "What do we do now?" Tayuya asked her. "We meet up with Yamato and the others," a voice said from behind them. They turned quickly before relaxing when they saw it was an exhausted Naruto. "Are you two alright?" "We're fine. The guy was pretty much out of chakra and weapons to throw at us. I think we can thank Kage-sama for that," Yugito told him. "Yeah, the fucker went down in only a few moves," Tayuya agreed. "Akatsuki have 3 of the Biju in their possession now, including the Ichibi," Yugito informed him. Naruto sighed and nodded. "Let's get out of here." He sealed away the body and the 3 took off into the trees once again. Wind Country. Plain. The 3 arrived on the grassy open plain where they came across the sight of an alive Gaara surrounded by dozens of Suna nins, including Temari and a now-healed Kankuro, along with Yamato and what looked like an unconscious Chiyo. The group saw them approach and they made their way to the center where Gaara stood giving his respects to Chiyo. "Gaara?" Naruto asked upon reaching the former Ichibi Jinchuriki. "I am alive, Uzumaki. Chiyo Obaken saved me," Gaara answered his unasked question. "What happened?" he asked the cage. "She gave her life for mine," Gaara replied as he gazed upon the woman who died to bring him back. "She gave me a message to give to you. She said that the world will always belong to the younger generation." Naruto didn't know what to say to that. "We must return to Suna. Everyone move out." Gaara turned and started away, but he fell forward since his legs were still adjusting to his control again. Naruto and Kankuro grabbed his arms and helped him walk. The rest of the group followed close behind as they set off towards the direction of Suna. Wind Country. Suna, main entrance. Upon their return to Suna, the cage was taken to the hospital and Yugito attended to him since she was the most skilled medic there. Even without the Ichibi sealed within him, Gaara still had some lingering abilities that the demon had. Most notably were his ability to control sand and quick recovery rate. 2 days after they returned to Suna, Gaara was allowed to leave the hospital and return to his duties as cage. The villagers celebrated his return and of course Team Naruto was forced to attend at Gaara's request. Finally, on the 3rd day, it was time for the team to leave for Konoha after receiving recall orders via Messenger Hawk. "Well, I guess this is where we part ways, huh?" Naruto asked the young cage. "Thank you for everything you've done for me, Uzumaki-san," Gaara said, holding out his hand. Naruto took it. "It's Namikaze now actually, Tayuya is an Uzumaki." A flash of surprise crossed Gaara's face, but he nodded after a moment. "I see. Do be careful on your journey." "Hey, it's me," Naruto said indignantly. "That's why I worry," Gaara grunted. "Akatsuki now has 3 of the Biju. They will come after you and Ni-san soon." "We'll be ready," Naruto told him. "I hope you are," Gaara nodded and took a step back. "Come on, let's go. I want to be back in Konoha in 3 days, Naruto said to his team and turned away. Hey, wait for me, Tayuya called as she took off after him. Kazekage-sama, Yugito bowed before following. If you find out anything about Akatsuki, please send a message to the Hokage, Kazekage, Yamato said and soon followed after them. What do we do now, Gaara? Temari asked her brother. We prepare, Gaara said as he turned and entered the village. Chapter 22. Passion. Fire Country. Konoha, Hokage Tower. Is the information reliable? The Hokage asked the team standing in front of his desk. He didn't strike me as someone who would send us on a wild goose chase. He wanted Orochimaru dead as much as we do and seemed to generally want me to kill him. Besides, even if it is a trap, we can fight our way out of it, Naruto continued. Are you sure you want to go through with this, Naruto? Yugito? Kakashi asked the two blondes. Yugito nodded in reply. We need to do this. Sasuke and Sakura had to answer for the things they've done. We need to confront them, Naruto told him. Kakashi nodded slowly. I see. Very well then. Go. Confront this Akatsuki spy and if possible retrieve Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto nodded at the orders. Thank you. There is one thing before you go. I'm adding a new member to the team. Sai, come in, Kakashi said, and the door opened to reveal a pale Anbu without a mask. Hello, I am Sai. The newcomer greeted them with a clearly fake smile. Sensei? Naruto asked, turning to the Hokage. Kakashi sighed. I had to compromise with the village elders concerning you and Yugito. In exchange for allowing you both to continue your missions, the leader of the root Anbu, Danzo, wanted one of his men on your team. Sai is the one he selected. Senpai. I hope you know what you're doing, Yamato thought when he saw the boy. What is with that smile? It's clearly fake. Yugito narrowed her eyes at him. He's hot, but that smile is plain creepy. Who am I to judge? Were Tayuya's thoughts on the matter. Danzo. Ero Sennin warned me about him. I need to be careful with this one, Naruto thought and turned back to the rude Anbu. Welcome to the team, he said with a nod. Sai merely gave his signature smile. It is a pleasure to be working in the service of Konoha. I hope you can lead well, Dickless. I'm gonna kill him, Naruto said simply and cracked his knuckles. I'm going to Omegakure no Sato, Jiraiya said clearly as he looked across the desk at the Hokage. They could have been lying, Kakashi suggested. Jiraiya just shook his head. If the leader of Akatsuki really is Nagato, then I need to find out for certain. He was one of my students, Kakashi. If it were Minato instead, would you be second-guessing my actions? No, I wouldn't, Kakashi admitted. Then at least take a small team with you, he continued. Again the Gamma Sennin shook his head. This requires stealth. A full squad of ninja aren't going to be able to infiltrate AIM. To get in unnoticed I need to go alone. Fine, go, Kakashi sighed and leaned back in his chair. Thank you, Jiraiya bowed and left a moment later. Nobody was prepared for what would happen on that particular mission. Fire Grass Country. Border. The now 5-man team had spent the rest of the day on the road to Grass Country where they would meet the Akatsuki spy and hopefully get some useful information from him. Sai, if you call me Dickless one more time I swear to Kami that I will kick your ass, Naruto growled at the rude Anbu. Sai simply smiled. My apologies, Naruto-san. I was just offering my opinion on your ability to lead the team. Well, you're what we normal ninja call an asshole. I swear you're worse than Sasuke on his worst days, Naruto grunted in annoyance. If you say so, but let me point out two important details in your logic. Uchiha Sasuke is a traitor who abandoned the village and so is Haruno Sakura. I am not a traitor like they are, Sai explained with his smile. Well, your personality could do with some work, Tayuya quipped. Sai smiled at her. And what personality do you think I should use? The redhead frowned at him. That's not something you can decide, Dickman. It comes naturally. Everyone has their own personality that defines them. And I suppose yours is the tough girl who curses a lot? Sai questioned. Tayuya nodded slowly in reply. What is with you anyway? You act like you don't know what emotions are. Sai smiled again. I don't have feelings. What do you mean you don't have feelings? Yugito was the one who asked. Sai turned to her and answered with a smile. Just like I said, I don't feel anything. Surely you must feel something? Tayuya inquired after a moment of silence. Sai just smiled. No, I don't feel anything. Naruto looked behind at the three other teens. He spoke after a moment of silence. Let's stop at the next town for the night. We can rest there and set off for the bridge tomorrow evening. The meeting isn't for another 3 days. What do we do until then? Tayuya asked. That's simple. We train and improve our teamwork. Even if the spy wasn't followed, we will still have to capture them, Naruto stated clearly. I know a few jutsu I can teach you all. They're Doden and Suiden jutsu, Yamato spoke up and cast a look at the Nibi Jinchuriki. I am sorry Yugito-san, but I do not know any Raiden or Kaden jutsu. Yugito nodded in understanding. Don't worry about it, Yamato Taicho. I'm still working on a jutsu of my own anyway, so it's fine. Yamato Taicho, Naruto said, getting the man's attention. I heard from Hokage-sensei that you can use Mokuton jutsu, right? The question surprised the others there. Yes, that's right. I prefer not to talk about how I received this particular power though, Yamato stated with a nod. Since the only person on record to have ever been able to use Mokuton jutsu was the Shodai Hokage, I was wondering if it was possible to learn it, Naruto said over his shoulder. It's not something that can be taught. To even be able to use it correctly, you would need to have Senju blood flowing in your veins. And even then you might not be able to use it. I mean, look at Tsunade-sama. She's a Senju but she is unable to use Mokuton jutsu, Yamato informed him. I actually have Senju blood flowing in me. Tayuya has too. We're both descended from the Senju clan from during the clan wars. There is also the fact that the Senju are descended from the Rikudo Sennin. Surprise flashed across the Anbu captain's eyes. It's not exactly public knowledge, but it's not like certain people don't already know that detail, he finished as he turned towards the rude Anbu of the team. Danzo-sama is already fully aware of this information, Naruto-san, Sai stated with a smile. I thought so. Naruto knew there was nothing that got past that man. Alright, I'll try teaching you Mokuton jutsu, but my skill pales in comparison to the Shodai Hokage. I may not be of much help, Yamato admitted. Some help is better than none, Yugito said with a shrug. Can you teach me those jutsus you used on the last mission? You know the Rinnegan ones? Tayuya asked the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. If you do, I'll teach you one of my Rinnegan jutsus. I can't really use it right considering the chakra levels involved. What is it? Naruto asked her over his shoulder. A jutsu called Chibaku Tensai. Grass Country. Hitomi Town, Hot Spring. They arrived in town a day later and set themselves up in one of the many hotels there. After settling into a hotel, the team decided to pay a visit to the local hot springs. This decision set off an interesting chain of events. Well, that's enough male bonding for me. Before I go, Naruto, I think there is something you should know about Jiraiya-sama, Yamato said, getting out of the water. Naruto stopped his trek towards the barrier that separated the men and women baths. He turned and asked, what is it, Yamato Taicho? A very long time ago, when Jiraiya-sama was a small boy, he came very close to death once. He had 6 fractured ribs and both of his arms were broken. He suffered multiple ruptured internal organs too. Do you want to know what the reason was? Supposedly he was caught peeping on Tsunade and she beat the shit out of him. So before you hop out of the spring and take a peek over that fence, let me ask you something. What do you think Yugito-san would do in that same situation? Yamato's question made Naruto's face turn pale. Naruto watched as the Anbu captain set off towards the changing rooms, thinking about what the man had said. It would so be worth it, the blonde reasoned and started towards the fence again. Ready to go back now, bitch? Tayuya asked. The female hot spring was empty except for the 2 of them and it was getting late. You go on ahead, I'll catch up, Yugito told her. The redhead looked at her friend for a moment before struggling and continuing on her way to the changing rooms. Yugito laid back again the edge of the spring and sighed in content as she looked out over the empty bath. She grabbed a towel and fastened it around her. A moment later she disappeared in a burst of speed. You should never try and peep on someone who can sense your exact location from a mile away. Naruto, who had been peeking through a man-made hole in the outside of the spring bath, blinked at seeing his fellow blonde just disappear. What do you think you're doing? Yugito asked from behind him, still dressed in only a towel. He yelped in surprise and suddenly remembered what Yamato had told him earlier. I'm not peeping. I mean, I'm sorry. Please don't kill me, he cowered. It was then that Yugito caught sight of what he was wearing, or lack thereof. Like her, he was only wearing a towel which covered his modesty like she had done for hers. She blushed and looked away as he did much the same. I'm not going to kill you, she said, still blushing. If you wanted tea to see me like this, then why you could have just asked, she stuttered out. Yeah, I'm sorry, I think I should go. He moved away. She grabbed his hand and stopped him. Yugito? He asked upon seeing her action. I know we've been busy lately, but do we have to keep dancing around the issue? She stuttered out the question. Can we just not stop? She asked him hesitantly. Yugito? He asked confused. Just this once. She leaned in and kissed him. She stopped a second later. Can we just be us? No mission, no attachment, no restraint, no Kumo, no Konoha, no Akatsuki. Just us. He looked into her eyes. If you want. She kissed him again and the two were consumed with passion. Insert imagination, grass country. Hitomi Town, hotel. The morning sun shone across the small town and into the room where the red-headed Rinnegan user slept. She groaned and turned over to avoid the sun. Even after burying her head in her pillow, she knew she wouldn't be able to sleep anymore and groggily sat up. She looked across at the futon Yugito was supposed to occupy but found it empty. The first thought that went through her head was that she didn't come back last night. The second thought was where she was, and her final thought plastered a grin on the redhead's face. There was only one other place Yugito would willingly sleep. Naruto's futon. That cat would only be with him. Then again, her brothers and her best friend's sex life was not really any of her business. Tayuya groaned and turned her attention the window. She blinked. Is that Dickman sitting out there? Tayuya asked herself when she saw the black figure of the rude Anbu sitting at the edge of the balcony a few dozen meters away. She quickly got dressed and left the room. Sai sat at the edge of the balcony in a cross-legged position with a sketchpad in hand. He made no facial expression as he finished yet another one of his drawings, but yet again couldn't find a name for it, just like the others he had made. I never figured you to be the artistic type, Dickman. He looked over his shoulder and saw Tayuya approach. Looks can be deceiving, Sai responded in monotone. Don't I know it, she chuckled bitterly. You know, for a guy who says he doesn't have any feelings, you sure do create a lot of shit like what's in your hand. Sai just smiled. The same could be said for you and your music. Fuck you, the redhead shot back. No one insulted her music, no one sane anyway. She calmed herself a moment later. What's its name anyway? Excuse me? He asked politely. Your drawing. What's its name? Tayuya said as she gestured to the sketchpad in his hand. Honestly, whenever I try and give them titles, nothing good comes to mind, Sai admitted, still smiling. The right words escape me, and I just don't feel anything. The two fell into silence for a few seconds. If you don't feel anything, then what is this exactly? Tayuya asked him as she held out a small sketchbook. Sai trailed off and took the book from her hands. It isn't finished yet, because it belongs to my brother. Oh? Where's your brother now? The redhead asked him. Dead. His answer stopped her response cold. Then that's more reason for you to actually feel something, Tayuya told him. And what expression would I need to make? Sai asked with a smile. She didn't have an answer. Hey, you two. Yamato called from the hotel entrance. We're leaving now. Go get your things and meet us at the Eastern Plaza. Yes, sir, they both nodded in understanding. Good, you're both here. Now we're just waiting for Naruto-san and Yugito-san. Where are they exactly? Yamato asked, annoyed at their absence. Hey, Naruto called as the two blondes approached. Isn't it a great morning? He asked and sighed in content. Tayuya looked over at Yugito and the two locked eyes for a minute. The moment Yugito turned away, a large smirk stretched across the redhead's lips as she looked at the Kumo Jonin. You two didn't come back last night, and you look like someone who just had an amazing fuck. Tayuya whispered to her, how is he? He's your brother, Yugito growled back, clearly embarrassed. That's not something you should be asking me. The redhead just kept grinning. That good, I see. Shut up, the Nibi Jinchuriki hissed. You seem to be in a good mood this morning, Yamato commented upon seeing the team leader. Naruto rolled his shoulders back and a few knots were cracked, and why wouldn't I be? It is a beautiful day and soon we'll be able to complete this mission. Yamato raised an eyebrow at the declaration, but after a moment merely shrugged and turned away. Sai had other plans, however. Was she disappointed in your sexual relations with her? Naruto shot him a glare. No, and shut up already. It was one of those days. Chapter 23. Heaven and Earth Part 1. Grass Country. Tenchi Bridge. Sasori, the hooded figure, greeted. Sasori examined the Akatsuki spy as he removed his hood. How the time flies. It was Yakushi Kabuto. No tail? Sasori's gruff voice asked. None, I assure you, Kabuto confirmed. How do you feel? It was a simple question. There remains some disorientation from when your jutsu dissolved and I started remembering who I really was, but it'll pass. Kabuto informed. How many questions? Sasori asked him. There isn't much time, so please be quick. I've risked my life coming here, Kabuto said nervously. Uchiha Sasuke. Where is he? Sasori questioned. There are several hideouts, but these change from week to week, so his location cannot be pinpointed. Some are in countries outside of Sound that Orochimaru's spies have infiltrated and maintain for us. But there is no set transfer plan or pattern. We're currently laying low at a safe house on a small island in the northern lake, but we'll be moving in 3 days' time. Uchiha Sasuke is also there right now, Kabuto answered. Suddenly there was a rustle in the bushes behind him and he threw a kunai at it. After a moment a small rabbit jumped out and he let out a sigh of relief. Just a rabbit. Kabuto turned and continued, so regarding the matter you asked me to look into. Even after Orochimaru transfers bodies, he puts up a protective barrier on the cell specimens from the old host body, so I have not been able to analyze them. I see, Sasori nodded at the information. After a moment Kabuto said almost in panic, look, this is taking too long. If Orochimaru discovers I met with you, death will be the least of my worries. You know what I want, now give it to me. Very well, Sasori conceded and reached into his cloak. A moment later he pulled out a kunai and a figure appeared behind Kabuto. Interesting conversation. Do you mind if we join you? Orochimaru asked sinisterly as Sasori, and Kabuto jumped away from him. If you hadn't pulled out your kunai, Sasori, I wouldn't have gotten away in time, Kabuto admitted with shaky breath. Your garbs bring back memories, Sasori, Orochimaru said with a smirk. Did you follow Kabuto? Sasori questioned. Oh come now, I just wanted to say hello and thank you for sending me this one. He's been so handy to have. Every time I develop a new jutsu I need at least 100 human bodies to experiment on. Thanks to Kabuto's medical ninjutsu I get to use them over and over again. There's such a shortage of volunteers, you know, Orochimaru explained as two well-known figures appeared at his side. One was a dark-haired male wearing white and black clothing with a katana strapped horizontally to his back. The other wore a pink and red outfit to match her pink hair. Upon closer inspection these two individuals were Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura, new canons of Konohagachure no Sato. Kami, there they are, Yugito whispered from the tree line behind Sasori. I couldn't sense them until they were right on top of him. She gritted her teeth at the situation. Don't worry about it, Yugito. We knew that this might be a trap, Naruto told her. Suddenly Kabuto's hand became a blur of blue energy as he sliced through Sasori and revealed the occupant inside it. Yamato jumped back and was met with a wave of snakes which grabbed him and bit down on him. He turned to wood and shattered a moment later as the real him dropped down further away from the newcomers and Kabuto. I don't understand, Kabuto. You're supposed to be an Akatsuki spy under Sasori's sleeper jutsu, Yamato said, confused at the situation. I'm afraid your intelligence is a little out of date. Orochimaru-sama removed that problem a long time ago, Kabuto stated clearly. So you were just pretending to be under Sasori's jutsu while you were really under Orochimaru's jutsu instead, Yamato mused. Wrong again, I'm afraid. Orochimaru-sama and I share a common philosophy. I'm with him of my own free will, Kabuto declared. Who are you anyway? You ruined out plans for Sasori, he asked. Patience, Kabuto, all will be revealed in due time. Starting with the three rats hiding behind Papa Rat here, Orochimaru said with a grin. Yamato motioned forward and four figures blurred down in front of him. Why am I not surprised to see you, Naruto-kun? Naruto, Yugito, Sakura said upon seeing her former teammates. Dobi, demon woman, Sasuke said unimpressed. It's been a long time, Sasuke, Sakura, Naruto spoke as he examined the two Nukenin. I see you've been doing well for yourselves, huh, traitors? Yugito asked as she gave them both a once-over. Well, isn't this a happy reunion? Orochimaru asked with a sadistic smirk on his face. And here I was hoping to fight my old partner Sasori, but instead you brats show up. Well, that explains Papa Rat over there. Of course he would be on your team, huh, Naruto-kun, Yugito-chan? He mused as he looked over at Yamato. Sasuke's eyes morphed into his Sharingan and Naruto looked over at him. A moment later everything around him changed. Naruto's mindscape, Jinchuriki seal. It was dark and damp when Sasuke entered the sewer-like mind of his former friend and rival. He looked impassive as he entered what was clearly the main room where the Kyuubi's cell was located. He looked up at the beast and it took notice of him. The water in front of the cage came together to form a large fox head and it glared at the newcomer. An Uchiha dares to step into my presence? Know your place, abomination, for you are in the presence of a god, Kyuubi growled at him. A god? More like a pet, Sasuke smirked as the fox roared. You should respect your betters, abomination. You are only here thanks to those things you have for eyes. A product of your cursed bloodline, Kyuubi sneered at the Uchiha. Sasuke merely looked at him with a neutral expression. It seems this isn't your first encounter with these eyes. You really don't know anything, do you, abomination? Even with those eyes you still cannot see through your hate. It is fitting, I suppose. Your chakra is vile and reminds me of Uchiha Madara. Make no mistake, abomination. You have no power here, Kyuubi said with a sinister smirk. Do not underestimate the power of the Uchiha clan, Sasuke started. I just need to suppress your power so I don't need to deal with it outside. Your hatred has blinded you, I see. How do you plan on accomplishing such a task? Your will has always been inferior to my campaigners, Kyuubi taunted. The dobi is irrelevant, Sasuke said as he stepped forward and made to grab the fox head by the nose. He was stopped, however, when someone grabbed his outstretched hand. What? Teme, you do know that your dojutsu is nothing but a bastardized version of the Rinnegan, don't you? Do you really think you can enter the head of a Rinnegan user and do whatever the fuck you want? Get over yourself. Naruto blew the Uchiha away from the fox. Sasuke crashed into the wall and gritted his teeth in anger. You. The last time we fought I could have killed you. I didn't want to, but I could have. I thought we were friends, Teme, but clearly I was wrong. Looking at you now I see that. Last time I only spared your life on a whim. And now I'll take it on a whim, Naruto declared. Now get out of my head, he shouted and blew Sasuke out of his mind. How much did you hear, boy? The Kyuubi questioned his jailer. Naruto turned to the fox head. All of it. You got some explaining to do, fox. Who the fuck is Madara and why did you keep calling Sasuke an abomination? Hehe, it seems that sister of yours is rubbing off on you. You'll find out the truth in due time, boy. The fox chuckled as it turned into water again and moved back into its cage. Where were you anyway? You just let him enter here and make it all the way into this room before finally stopping him. Why? While he was in my mind, I was in his, Naruto answered truthfully. He grinned. I now know exactly where over 47 of Orochimaru's bases are, both in grass and sound countries. Even now you continue to amuse me, Naruto. Just like headed, the Kyuubi chuckled darkly as his crimson eyes glowed in the darkness behind the bars. But do not think for a second I will bow before you like I did to him so long ago. We are still enemies, never forget that, boy, and do not think for a second that I will not eventually be free of this seal. You can try, fox, Naruto said as he turned away. But for now you owe me rent, were his final words before disappearing through the archway. Even now you act like him. I suppose it's fitting that my second jailer is the successor of my first jailer, the Kyuubi mused as he was left alone once again. Grass country, Tenchi Bridge. Sasuke turned his head away and rubbed his eyes. Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked worriedly. Never try to enter my mind again, Teme. Next time I will do more than throw you out, Naruto said, clearly having returned to the land of the living as well. How do you want to play this, Naruto? Yugito asked her fellow blonde. We'll take them on separately, Naruto told her and the rest of the team. Yugito, you take Sasuke, and Yamato, you take Sakura. Tayuya and Sai, you two take Kabuto. What about you? Tayuya asked him. Orochimaru is mine, Naruto responded. The Otokage smirked in amusement. Do you really think you can win here, Naruto-kun? We'll do more than win. We'll kill you, Naruto replied clearly. Shunpo no Jutsu. In a flash of yellow he appeared before the Otokage with a chest-sized ball of chakra in hand. Udama Rasengan. He called out as the jutsu connected and blew everything in range into the air. Orochimaru landed on one of the trees, clearly missing his left arm and still smirking at the blonde Konoha Jonin. A moment later a pair of hands erupted from his mouth and stretched his mouth open to allow another Orochimaru to emerge completely unharmed. You have the Kyuubi and the Rinnegan and that is the best you can do? Pathetic, the Otokage taunted as he threw away his damaged body and smirked at the blonde once again. I killed Sasori so I will kill you too, Naruto snarled at him. Orochimaru raised an eyebrow at that piece of information. You call Ed Sasori? Heh, interesting, you're still very amusing Naruto-kun, but you're still not in my or Sasuke-kun's league. He held up his hands and dozens of snakes shot out towards Naruto, Senade Tajashu. Naruto saw them coming and formed several quick hand seals. Futon. Rinnegan. He inhaled a large breath and then exhaled a massive blast of wind which shredded snakes and cut through the trees in its line of fire. The wind bullet detonated in a massive blast and leveled a good 80-foot radius around where it exploded. Orochimaru lay down on the ground of the now smooth surface with a smirk still on his face. Mandara no Jin. Dozens if not hundreds of snakes erupted from Orochimaru's mouth and slithered towards the blonde Konoha. Each snake head had a blade of some kind pointing out of their mouths and was no doubt ready to slash and or stab their target. Damn, that is a lot of snakes. I have no choice but you use that jutsu. This guy is as strong as Arrow Sennin when he's serious, Naruto thought as he formed several hand seals. Mokuton. Taju Daijirin no Jutsu. Naruto threw out both of his arms and they turned into wood right before his eyes. Surprise flashed over Orochimaru's features and he lost his smirk as the wood seemed to expand and sharpen until there were hundreds of wooden spikes. The snakes were impaled and otherwise slaughtered under the hail of wooden spikes. When it was over, the wood severed from Naruto's body and his arms returned to normal as Orochimaru stood up, no longer amused. How can you use the Shodai Hokage's jutsu? The Otokage demanded. It was Naruto's turn to smirk. You don't know your history that well, do you? The Senju and the Uchiha clans both descended from the Rikudo Sennin and by proxy the Rinnegan. The Rinnegan was responsible for creating jutsu and discovering chakra, so of course I can use it. It doesn't matter to you though, since you'll be dead by the end of the day. We'll see, Orochimaru sneered. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Two shadow clones popped into existence beside the blonde Konoha and he held out his hand towards them. Oh dear. This is unfortunate, Orochimaru thought worriedly as he saw the two clones concentrate chakra and the distinctive sound of a bell-like screech filling the air. He bit his thumbs and formed several hand seals. A second later he slammed his hands into the ground. Kachiyose. Sanju Rashomon. 3 massive demonic gates rose up from the ground in front of him. That should hold him, he mused. Naruto jumped forward towards the massive gates and slammed his jutsu into it. Futon. Rasen Shuriken. The first gate completely shattered the moment the jutsu touched it. The second didn't fare any better and the third one was only able to hold itself together for half a second before it crumbled under the pressure of the attack. Orochimaru's eyes widened as Naruto rammed the jutsu into midsection and he was blown back. The chakra shuriken expanded and encased the Otokage in a ball of spinning wind and power. He screamed in pain as every nucleus in his body was slashed and destroyed by the jutsu until it finally exploded in a blast of wind. Orochimaru fell into the center of the newly formed crater and writhed in pain from the blow. I win, Orochimaru, Naruto said simply. No, I refuse to be beaten by a failure like you, the Otokage snarled as his body exploded upwards. Yamata no Jutsu. Orochimaru roared as his body changed into the shape of a massive snake with 8 heads. What the hell is that thing? Naruto asked out loud when he saw the monstrosity. Die! Orochimaru screeched from one of the mouths as 2 of the heads came down on the blonde. What the hell is this? Naruto thought as he dodged the 2 large snake heads that tried to eat and or crush him. He turned himself into a giant snake with 8 heads. How the hell do I hurt him now? Think, damn it, think. He rolled under one of the necks and formed several hand seals. A moment later trees exploded from the ground and lifted the massive snake into the air. Mokuton Hajutsu. Jukai Koden. The abilities of the Shodai Hokage will not save you here, boy. The Habi Sennin roared at him and broke from of the man-made forest. I haven't mastered Chibaku Tensai yet, and that's the only jutsu I know that could do the kind of damage that's needed. Futon. Rinnegan might be able to slow him down, but eventually he'll get me. Naruto thought as he tried to calm himself. Die already, boy. Orochimaru shouted as 5 of the snake heads struck as one. I had to dodge, Naruto thought as he lunged out of the way. He managed to escape certain death, but one of the snake heads caught him in the side and sent him crashing into the forest. Crap, what the hell hit me? I think all of my ribs just broke. He groaned in pain and shakily managed to stand again. He looked up and saw that the snake heads were ready to finish the job. Damn it, there's nothing I can do. You have interfered in my plans too many times, kindly die, Orochimaru sneered and the heads struck. Crimson light exploded from Naruto and the heads were forced to back off as a vile chakra washed over the area. What followed was a massive shockwave dozens of feet tall and at least 5 miles wide. Trees and the earth itself were blown away by the sheer power that was unleashed. When the shockwave died down, the entire area was reduced to one large crater with a figure crouched down on all fours at its center. It was a crimson chakra fox with 4 tails swishing behind it. The chakra was so condensed that you couldn't even see who was in it. Oh dear. This is unfortunate, Orochimaru commented as he backed away slightly. The Kyuubified Naruto roared as it threw out its hand and the chakra claw shot out towards the Otokage. The 8 heads of Orochimaru slithered out of the way as the massive chakra claw tried to catch him. Having initially missed its target, the chakra claw released another 2 chakra claws from its arm and they aimed to catch one of the heads of the Otokage. Alright then, let's try this, Orochimaru sneered as one of the heads turned and opened, releasing a batch of snakes at the chakra claws. They melted almost instantly upon contact with the claws. Oh dear. He smirked and sent one of his heads to attack Naruto directly. The Kyuubified Naruto saw the approaching attack but was unable to evade as the head struck down on him, blowing up a batch of the earth as it happened. Almost instantly the head and by proxy the rest of the neck were slashed clean off as Naruto tore through it. You're not even conscious, are you, Naruto-kun? Orochimaru sneered as he tried to pull back. Naruto wouldn't have any of that. A claw of chakra erupted from his chest and hit the ground right in front of the large now 7-headed snake. A moment later Naruto was pulled by the claw and Orochimaru's eyes widened in horrors as he brought his fist down on yet another one of his heads. There was an echoing blast as the forest around the pair was blown away from the impact. Damn you. Why won't you just die already? Orochimaru shouted in anger as hundreds of small snakes streamed out of the 6 heads that he had left. Naruto paid them no heed as brought his hand up and then down, sending out a massive shockwave which completely annihilated over 400 snakes. Once it was over he roared and dozens of blue and red balls of chakra erupted from his body. His 4 tails came to a stop directly in front of him and the balls all merged into a single sphere at the center. Now what? The Otokage knew he wouldn't get an answer. His eyes were narrowed as he tried to move away. Contact with chakra so dense would kill even me. The chakra sphere compressed itself into a smaller ball and Naruto swallowed it a moment later. How do you plan on fighting while weighed down by all that chakra, Naruto-kun? His answer came when Naruto's fox body expanded into a ball and then expanded again after a few seconds. So that's how. I need to get away now. Orochimaru tried to cancel his jutsu but knew he didn't have enough time. Yanbiko Amari, it came as nothing but a scratchy whisper as the chakra ball exploded from Naruto's mouth. No, Orochimaru yelled in fear before his world was consumed in light. Chapter 24. Heaven and Earth Part 2. Grass Country, Tenchi Bridge. Kaizuki, Chidorigatana. There was a clang as Yugito and Sasuke clashed at the center of the old bridge. The others having split up and went their own ways during the opening stages of battle. They could both still hear the sounds from the other fights go on away from them, most notably the one between Naruto and Orochimaru. Just give up, demon woman. I would much rather you live and kill a few more Akatsuki members. They will be coming for you shortly, I believe, Sasuke said impassively. Your concern for my well-being is heartwarming, really. Yugito's voice was dripping with sarcasm. No wonder the Rikudo Sennin chose the Senju over the Uchiha when he had to choose his successor, she continued. Do not insult the Uchiha clan, Sasuke told her with a voice of steel. If there was one way to cause Sasuke anger, it was insult his family and clan. Yeah, they were a great bunch. I have to thank Itachi-san the next time I see him for wiping you scumbags out. Yugito knew it was a low blow, but she was a kunoichi and would take every advantage she could get in this fight. She saw him making a set of hand seals that she knew and quickly formed the same ones. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. The two exclaimed as they both blew out a massive fireball each towards each other. The two attacks collided in the center and exploded in a storm of flames. The center of the bridge shattered and fire covered the crumbling supports that held it together. Sasuke was airborne in his curse seal level 2 state while Yugito was forced to retreat off of the bridge. This was when Sasuke struck. Chidori Iso, he spoke as a spear-like lightning weapon shot out of his fingertips and tore through her shoulder. She flew through the air and collided with a tree, the attack going through both her and the tree. He retracted his jutsu and she fell to her knees as she tried to heal her wound. He strolled forward and grabbed her wrist before she could react. Chidori Nagashi, he said, and Yugito cried out in pain as electricity jolted through her nervous system. Any last words? He asked as he tossed her to the ground. Screw you, she rasped out. You're not my type, Sasuke sneered down at her. Her body exploded in a purple light and an intense heat washed over the area. When the light died, there now stood a 3-story tall fire cat with 2 tails and she roared. This is different than before from both her and the Dobi, Sasuke thought as he remembered his fight and defeat with Naruto 3 years ago. He took to the skies as she sent a blast of purple flames at him. In this form, Kaden and Raiden jutsu will be ineffective. Perhaps I can suppress her. He concentrated his Sharingan on the demon car's eyes and suddenly the world around them changed. Yugito's mindscape, Jinchuriki seal. Unlike Naruto's mind where it was one large sewer system, Yugito's mindscape was one large graveyard. Gravestones and tombs littered the area, giving an unpleasant aura to it. In the center of this was a large metal cage with a 100-story tall raging fire cat with 2 tails inside it. Uchiha Sasuke approached the cage much like he did previously with Naruto, but this time he was confident he could suppress this demon without much trouble, unlike with Naruto and the Kyuubi. Uchiha, you have a lot of nerve showing your face here, the Nibi snarled at him. Why is it that you demons seem to know about my clan? Sasuke questioned her. You will get no answers from me, hell spawn. Leave or face my wrath, the fire cat growled out. Do not presume to be able to order me around, demon. You remain trapped in this cage and I command you to recall your chakra. Obey me, Sasuke said with his Sharingan spinning wildly, and the Nibi's chakra was forced to retract itself back to the cage. Get away from her, a purple blur slugged him across the face. It was Yugito. I thought Naruto told you not to go poking around at people's heads, asshole. Sasuke wiped some blood from his bottom lip and narrowed his eyes in anger. I've done what I came to do. We'll finish this outside, demon woman. He was gone a moment later. He's suppressed my chakra, kitten. I will no longer be able to aid you in this fight, the Nibi informed her host. Yugito looked over and clenched her fists. Damn it, I hate those eyes. You and me both, kitten. Don't die, the Nibi told her. Yugito nodded and disappeared a moment later. Grass country. Forest. Chidori, Sasuke exclaimed as he threw out his fist towards where her heart was located. Kaizuki. Yugito narrowly parried the attack and kicked him away, now having regained her human form. Sasuke recovered quickly. However, you're strong. You would have made an acceptable consort. If you think I'd ever go along with a bastard like you, then you must seriously be smoking something illegal. No one sane would ever willingly want to be within a 10-foot radius of you, Yugito said, disgusted. Sakura did, Sasuke pointed out with a small smirk. And like I said, no one sane would ever go with you, Yugito shot back. Face it, Teme, compared to Naruto you will always be second best and he will always be one step ahead of you no matter what you do. Itachi-san doesn't even see you. His target is Naruto, and I'm not even sure if he sees me. He seems more interested in Naruto than you or me. I will kill Itachi, Sasuke stated clearly. Yugito scoffed at the declaration. You and what army? You wouldn't even be able to scratch Itachi. He'd have to be half blind for him to take you seriously. Do not speak to me of Itachi. Sasuke shouted and charged forward head on. It looks like I hit a nerve, Yugito smirked as she formed several hand seals. When she was finished, she threw her hand out towards her attacker and a dragon made of lightning shot out towards him. Raiden. Raryuden no Jutsu. Sasuke was surprised at the attack but quickly recovered and evaded the jutsu. To slow, he commented and charged forward as Yugito prepared for the assault again. The two froze when they heard a deafening explosion and the eastern horizon exploded into a white light. The two turned towards the source and saw smoke now drifting from far off in the distance. Yugito honed her senses and detected only one chakra signature in that direction, Naruto's. This meant the battle was over and Orochimaru was dead. So Orochimaru is dead, Sasuke mused and took to the air. Hey, where do you think you're going? Yugito questioned. I no longer have an interest in the situation, Sasuke said simply and flapped his wings a few times. He disappeared behind the tree line and out of view, leaving her to her thoughts. Yugito gave a sigh of relief and frustration. Damn. She turned towards where the blast had originated and took off. There is no use in tracking Sasuke Teme at the moment. I need to get to Naruto and see if he needs any help. I doubt he got through his fight and killed a Sannin without taking some serious damage. She's fast, Yamato thought as he evaded one of Sakura's punches. One of her punches struck the tree behind him and it shattered instantly. She's strong too. In fact, I think that's Tsunade-sama's super strength. But where did this girl learn that? Hold still, the pinkette shouted as she caught him in the side with a roundhouse kick. Fuck, that hurts. Yamato cried in pain as he felt his arm become dislocated. He skidded away as she turned to face him. That was a cheap shot. I'm Eiku no Ichi, she shot back. Yamato grabbed his dislocated arm with his other arm and snapped it back into place. Sakura saw this and shot forward as he started forming hand seals once more. Just as she got within range to attack, Yamato completed his jutsu and channeled chakra into his feet. Doden. Doryuso, he grunted out as spikes of rock erupted from the ground around him and tried to impale the pinkette. Sakura jumped back to avoid the attack and landed on a tree branch high above the clearing. Her reflexes are inhuman. No normal human could have seen that attacking coming and yet she dodged it like it was nothing. What is she? Yamato asked in thought as he looked up at the kunoichi. A moment later she jumped off of the branch and descended directly towards him with her fist glowing a brilliant blue. Oh shit. Okasho. Sakura exclaimed as her fist struck the ground where Yamato stood. Dust exploded upwards as the earth shattered and tore itself apart. As the dust cleared, Yamato could be seen coughing from the smoke and Sakura was now standing. From her file I received before this mission, there is physically no way that she could have reached this level in only 3 years. She's extremely fast and has somehow managed to recreate Tsunade-sama's super strength. Her progress is unnatural. I'm sorry Hokage-sama, but she appears to have experimented on herself to give herself an edge, Yamato deduced as he narrowed his eyes at the pinkette. Sakura smiled sweetly. I saw you use a Mokuton jutsu back at the bridge. I doubt you are a senju, so if you're not a senju then you must be one of those experiments. Yamato's eyes hardened at her words. Yes, I read the reports on Orochimaru-sama's experiments concerning the Shodai Hokage's jutsu and I also know that none were reported to have survived. Besides you, of course. Then I think it's about time I got serious. Mokuton Hijutsu. Jukai Koden. Yamato formed a hand seal and large trees sprouted from the ground around them. They eventually became so thick that sunlight was blocked from the area where the two stood apart. I may not be on the level of the Shodai Hokage, but I'm no pushover either. Sakura realized this also and quickly started forming hand seals. You'll still lose in the end. We'll see. Mokuton. Daijiren no Jutsu. Yamato's right arm turned into wood and shot out to try and impale his opponent. The jutsu tore through Sakura's form, but a moment later it poofed out of existence. Damn it, she used a clone. He turned swiftly and spotted Sakura on one of the man-made branches with her hands in a seal. Megan. Jubaku Satsu, she whispered, and the Yamato suddenly found himself bound to a tree which he couldn't control. This has to be a genjutsu, Yamato decuded and formed a hand seal. He expelled chakra from his body and shattered the jutsu, Kai. He quickly turned to check on his opponent when he realized that she was right above him. This is dangerous. Satenkyaku. Sakura exclaimed as her heel struck down on his position and the tall forest crumbled around them. Trees fell as the two jumped away from each other. Yamato landed atop one of the trees while Sakura landed on a branch a few feet away. You know, this could have turned out much differently, Sakura-san. Had you remained in Konoha, you could have been a very influential member of the medical corps and possible even the student of Tsunade-sama herself. Kakashi-senpai is very disappointed in you, Sakura-san, Yamato told her. I made my choice, Mokutan-san, Sakura stated as she formed a hand seal. Please call me Yamato, the former Anbu captain said simply. Yamato? I'll remember that name, she nodded and started channeling chakra. Bunshin no Jutsu, 10 normal clones appeared at her side. She's sending abnormal clones? At best all she could hope for is a distraction. What is she planning? Yamato asked in thought as he finished his own hand seals. Sweden. Suihachi. He held up his hand and water came gushing out of his palm, wiping out the clones that came at him. Kaimon. Sakura shouted as her chakra exploded from her body in a number of green and brown spirals. Yamato snapped his attention towards the powerful surge of chakra. She's opening her Hachimon. Kumon. Sakura called out as her chakra output doubled. I must stop her now, Yamato thought as he threw out his arm again and it turned into a barrage of wooden spikes. Mokutan. Daijirin no Jutsu. The attack slammed into where Sakura stood, but she just kept going. Simon. Her eyes were now glowing white and her skin had become a reddish brown. There is no other choice, she's too strong now. Mokutan. Jukai Heki, Yamato said and slammed his hand into the ground. A very dense wooden wall sprouted from the ground in front of him. I hope that can hold her. Shoman. Sakura's muscles bulged as she screamed. She's too strong. Yamato's eyes widened in fear as the wooden wall he created suddenly shattered and Sakura disappeared from view. She appeared behind him in a burst of speed, struck 1, 2, 4, 8, 16 punches to his body and he let out a silent scream as pain consumed him. At the end she spun quickly and planted a kick to his chest which sent him crashing down to the ground, bouncing twice before he finally stopped. Okasho. Sakura called out as she brought her fist down on the now motionless Konoha shinobi. It was over. Yamato lay in the center of a small crater with Sakura standing over him, still glowing green. After making sure he wouldn't be getting back up, her chakras slowly receded as she closed her celestial gates. She gave out a sigh of relief and winced as pain shot through her arms and legs. That hurt, she grunted out and dropped to her knees. She took a sample of her now dead opponent's blood and disposed of the body a moment later. Sakura, a voice said from behind her. She turned and blinked. Sasuke-kun? We're leaving. Orochimaru is dead, the Uchiha told her. Sakura nodded at him, and Kabuto-sensei? He no longer matters, Sasuke said simply as he took off into the trees. Sakura hesitantly nodded and looked back at where the bridge was. I'm sorry everyone, but I love Sasuke-kun. She disappeared after him a moment later. Chapter 25. Sorrow. Grass country. Forest. Fuck, where the hell has that dick guy gone at a time like this? Tayuya growled in thought as she evaded the kunai that was thrown at her. She landed on a tree branch and glared over at her opponent. This bastard is in for a world of hurt. Come now, Tayuya-san. Hold still so I can kill you, okay? Kabuto said with a smirk. After all, you are a traitor to Orochimaru-sama for abandoning your duties as a kunoichi of Otokugure no Sato. You bastard. That place was a hellhole. The only reason I stayed loyal to him was because of his damn curse seal. Tayuya shouted at him. It gave you power, did it not? He gave you power and only asked for your loyalty. Is submission no preferable to destruction? Kabuto asked simply. Some things are worse than death, the redhead responded. Kabuto smirked with a nod. True. But sometimes death is the least of a person's worries. Whatever, bastard, Tayuya shot back. Let's play, she said with a predatory grin. This is pointless. Kabuto sighed and took out a scroll. He unraveled it and swiped some blood along the kanji imprinted on it, Fuin Kai. Suddenly 24 motionless human figures appeared on the branches around the two. Say hello to the dead for me, Tayuya-san, Shakan no Jutsu. The bodies stood up a moment later, jumped at the tree that Tayuya stood atop. What the fuck is going on here? Are those people down there? She thought as the zombies knocked down the tree she was using. She landed a few feet away and the zombies were suddenly charging towards her. Okay, I need a plan. How about I just pound them all into a bloody pulp? That should work. She bit her thumb and made several hand seals. Kachiyose no Jutsu. Her 3 doki appeared at her side in puffs of smoke. Mateki. Genbuso Kyoku. Kabuto watched amused as the doki tore into the 24 attacking zombies. A few moments later it was over and the doki turned their attention to the auto nin since the zombies were now dead, as in completely dead and wouldn't be coming back. The first doki came at him with a large club and brought it down, but he evaded by jumping to the side. The second doki attacked from the side with a large double-edged sword and he was forced to jump over the initial swing. No wonder Orochimaru-sama didn't take you as one of his hosts. You're pathetic. Kabuto sneered and threw 6 kunai with explosive tags at the ground between himself and the 3 doki. Kaden. Kasumi Endu no Jutsu. He breathed out a flammable mist while simultaneously detonating the explosive notes on the kunai he had thrown a second ago, and the result was a massive blast of fire. Shit. Tayuya cursed as her doki were incinerated. Fujutsu Kyuin. She brought her hands up and tried to absorb the jutsu just like her brother had shown her. You can absorb ninjutsu? Impressive, for a traitor, Kabuto sneered. Tayuya fell to her knees trying to calm her breathing. Cough, do you ever shut up? Kabuto smirked at that. You know, even with those eyes of yours you are still nothing but a child trying to play in the big leagues. Compared to Naruto-kun you're not even a challenge. His smirk widened when he saw the glare she sent him. Just shut the fuck up. She shouted and formed 3 specific hand seals. Her right hand exploded into electricity and she shot forward. Chidori. Chakra no Mesu, Kabuto said, clearly unimpressed. He grabbed her lightning-covered hand almost effortlessly, surprising Tayuya since she thought it couldn't be stopped. Chidori, huh? Hitaki Kakashi must have taught you that. It doesn't matter now though. Don't look so surprised, Tayuya-san. After all, Hitaki was and still is someone I consider a threat who is on my level. I've spent many long nights looking for a way to deflect and counter his signature jutsu. I found out that all Raiden jutsu are susceptible to high frequencies of chakra manipulation that are usually given off during medical operations from the jutsu I am using right now. Let go, the redhead growled at him and tried to pull away. Not a chance. You die now, Kabuto said as his smirk became almost sinister in nature. Choju Giga, 3 medium-sized ink lions came from the side and surprised the Auto Jonin, forcing him to pull away. Tayuya suddenly found herself in the arms of her root teammate who was smiling at her like normal. Are you alright, Blower? Put me down, he set her down a moment later. And didn't call me Blower, Tayuya told him with a glare. True, she used a flute, but the term blower could insinuate other things. Thanks, she muttered out, knowing she'd be dead right now without him. Why did you come back? I thought you would have hightailed it out of here by now, she asked him. Sai simply smiled. Since I've been on this team I've experienced feelings that I thought I no longer had. I wish to understand those feelings and I do not believe I can do that if you or the rest of the team die. Tayuya looked at him for a moment before nodding. Geez, you're a piece of work. Do you know that? He didn't reply. Let's finish this. Are you two done? Kabuto mocked. And what is with that smile, kid? Surely you can do better than that, he taunted. I read in a book that a smile can get you out of a tough situation. Even if it's fake, Sai explained, still smiling. Sumi Nagashi, snakes made out of ink, rose up from the ground around Kabuto and caught him by surprise. What is this? Kabuto asked frantically as he tried to break free. My jutsu, Sai told him as black ink fell out of the scroll in his hand and flowed towards the ink snakes that kept the Auto Jonin pinned to the ground. Sai turned with Tayuya with a smile on his face. He can't move anymore no matter how strong he is. You're scary when you want to be, the redhead stated and turned her attention to the Auto Jonin and one of her former tormentors. She shot forward with her hand now engulfed in electricity once again. Chidori. Kabuto's eyes widened in fear as she drove her lightning-covered fist through his chest and out the other side in one swift motion. He coughed up blood as he tried and failed to heal the damage from the wound. No, he tried to speak but his voice soon died as his lifeless body dropped to the ground in a heap. Tayuya looked down at him aside. It's over. I will dispose of the body, Sai told her and proceeded to seal the body for study at Konoha Intelligence. Are you alright? He asked the redhead, having picked up on the fact that she couldn't seem to look at the body of their fallen opponent. It's nothing, Tayuya responded and sighed. Any idea where the others are? As if in answer of her question, Naruto and Yugito dropped down in front of the pair. Yugito looked a bit out of breath but Naruto looked like he had been through a tough time. Considering he took on Orochimaru, they shouldn't have been surprised at his current state, as Orochimaru had killed the Sandaime Hokage, though arguably the Sandaime was long past his prime. What happened? Tayuya asked upon seeing Naruto no longer had his trench coat on him. Kyuubi's chakra is very acidic, so my coat was burned away, Naruto replied. I'm going to need a new one, he added with a sigh. Where's Yamato Taicho? Tayuya asked them. Yugito shook her head as she replied, I can only sense his residual chakra signature. His chakra core is inactive and has already decayed. He's dead. They stood in silence for a few seconds. Sasuke and Sakura left a little while ago. I can't track them, she finished. This mission is a failure. Let's go home, there's nothing for us here now, Naruto gave the order. As the group left, Naruto looked back at the now destroyed bridge. I'm sorry this happened, Yamato Taicho. He was gone a moment later. Fire Country. Konoha, Hokage Tower. So Orochimaru and Kabuto are dead, Kakashi mused. He leaned back in his chair. I'm sorry about what happened to Tenzo, he was a good man. Tenzo? Yugito couldn't help but ask. It was Yamato's real name, the Hokage answered. He sighed, I'll have the workers add his name to the memorial stone tomorrow evening. I'm sorry, Sensei. He was under my command and I couldn't do anything for him, Naruto said with clenched fists. Naruto, you and your team killed Orochimaru and Kabuto. Two very important figures to Otto. We're at war, Naruto. No one wants to admit it, but Konoha is under attack and your team is the only thing standing between Konoha and the greatest threat of the current generation. People will die, Naruto. You have to accept that, Kakashi told him. Those who stray from the path of justice have no courage, but under the wing of a strong leader cowardice cannot survive, Naruto remembered the words. Exactly, Kakashi agreed as he leaned forward. There is also another matter we need to discuss. It's about Jiraiya-sama, that got their attention. What is it? What happened? Naruto questioned. Suddenly a figure popped into existence, actually several figures. The first they instantly recognized as Tsunade, while the others were a collection of summoned toads. One of them was the toad elder Fukasaku, which Naruto recognized easily, having met him on his training trip. Hey old man Fukasaku-sensei, Naruto greeted in his own way. Naruto, watch your language, Kakashi scolded him. No, it is quite alright. Fukasaku waved the comment off and sighed. Naruto boya, this isn't a social call, he continued. What happened? It was a demand, not a question. There's no easy way to say this. Jiraiya boya fell in battle 2 days ago against the Akatsuki leader. He's dead, Fukasaku informed him. Silence. Even Sai's smile had slipped from his face. Huh? Naruto managed. What did you just say? Jiraiya boya was killed 2 days ago by Pain, the Akatsuki leader, Fukasaku reiterated. How? Naruto's voice was harsh. He went to Omegakure no Sato in search of another of his students. A boy named Nagato who like you has the Rinnegan. It turns out that Pain is Nagato and Pain discovered Jiraiya boya during the infiltration. It appears that Pain has 6 different bodies and according to Jiraiya boya none of them were Nagato's, though he did say the lead one was another of his students called Yahiko. Originally Jiraiya boya never intended to battle Pain directly, but Pain's abilities far exceeded his imagination and without knowing the extent of his powers no one could ever win against him no matter how many times they fought. Jiraiya boya pushed himself beyond his own limits and almost managed to discover their secrets. No one but Jiraiya boya could have gotten as far. On top of that he could have gotten away if he had wanted to, but he sacrificed his life so that he could leave us this coded message. Even after his throat was cut out, Fukasaku explained and took off his cloak to show them the numbers now engraved on his back. The real one is not there, Naruto said upon reading the code, surprising those in the room. You know what this means? Fukasaku asked in surprise as he gestured to his back. They're words from Ero Sennin's newest novel. Any idea what it means? Naruto continued. It's too vague. Fukasaku shook his head and put his cloak back on. Did you let him go? Naruto asked, turning to the Hokage. Yes, Kakashi answered simply. Why? Naruto questioned. He wanted to go. Nagato-san was his student. I would have done the same thing if it were you instead, Kakashi replied. I'm sorry, Naruto. I tried sending people with him but he wouldn't allow it. Naruto snarled and left the room a moment later. Kakashi sighed tiredly. I apologize Fukasaku-sama. I'll arrange for Naruto to. No, that's all right. But back to the child of prophecy I was talking about earlier. It is either Nagato-san or Naruto-boya. Time will tell which one is the true one, Fukasaku sighed. If you'll excuse me, Tsunade said stiffly. Kakashi nodded and she left a moment later with Yugito following close behind. Tsunade Shisho? Tsunade asked hesitantly. Just give me some time Yugito-chan, Tsunade said and started away with clenched fists. Yugito watched her go for a few seconds before heading off, no doubt in search of Naruto. Tayuya and Sai exited a moment later, though Tayuya was noticeably shaking. Whether it was sadness or rage remained to be seen however. I can't believe this, the redhead said with clenched fists. This asshole, Pain is not going to get away with this, Tayuya growled out. Though she didn't much care for Jiraiya because of his perverted tendencies, the man did train Naruto and that was what mattered to her. It appears Akatsuki has become even more dangerous, Sai commented. It doesn't matter, this has gone on long enough. They'll pay for what they've done, the redhead growled out. I must report to Danzo-sama, Sai told her. Okay. I never thanked you for helping me out on the last mission, Tayuya started and kisses him on the cheek. Sai's eyes widened for a second, don't read too much into it Dickman, that was just for saving my life. Noted, Sai nodded slowly as he saw her walk away. Chapter 26. Unexpected Moves. Fire Country. Konoha, Root Headquarters. This place was always dark and damp, feeling like a pit in hell only without the lava. The lighting was a bare minimum and gave off a killing intent all on its own. Standing in the center of the platform was the leader of Root, a man by the name of Shimura Danzo. He was the kind of man who always thought that the ends justify the means and had no problem doing whatever it took to accomplish his goals and safeguard Konoha. It was the reason the Sandaime and Godem Hokages kept him around. The Yondaime had kept him around for that very reason too before his demise during the Battle of the Nine Tails 15 years ago. Sai. Wipe that stupid smile off your face, Danzo said and Sai appeared in front of him, kneeling. Report, he ordered. Orochimaru is dead Danzo-sama as is Kabuto. I apologize but Uchiha Sasuke and Haruno Sakura both managed to escape, Sai informed him. I see, interesting. I assume that the mission didn't go as planned then? It was a simple question but Sai knew better than to answer. Very well, the mission was indeed a failure as Uchiha Sasuke still lives. However, with both Orochimaru and Kabuto dead I no longer have to worry about those two fools. He turned and took a few steps before stopping again. I will let this failure slide this time. However, do not fail me again, Sai. Sai kept his head bowed. Your orders, Danzo-sama? I have a mission for you. Take Fu and Torun and collect as much information on Orochimaru's experiments as you can, were Danzo's orders. Yes, Danzo-sama, Sai said simply. Dismissed, Danzo said and turned away. Danzo-sama, Danzo stopped and turned to him slowly. I request a formal placement on Team Naruto under Namikaze Naruto as an official member. Agreed, Danzo said, surprising him though he didn't show it. You may leave, Sai. The Root Anbu bowed once more and left soon after. Danzo was not a fool, not by a long shot. He knew that despite the fact that he and Naruto had different beliefs, Naruto was the best chance Konoha had for survival other than himself, of course. With the increasing threat from Akatsuki and their accursed leader Uchiha Madara on the rise, Konoha needed every able-bodied shinobi they could get these days. After all, that was the reason he had voted to ally themselves with Kumo and permitted Yugito on the team. Fire Country, Konoha. Night had fallen on the village and the only sound that could be heard were the crickets in the bushes. Naruto was sitting at a bench in the middle of the silent street with an ice cream bar in his hand. Tears streamed down his face but he paid them no heed as he stared at the ice cream he held in his hand. There you are, Naruto. He looked up and saw Yugito approach. He wiped his eyes as she sat down beside him. You're a hard man to find. I wanted him to keep watching over me. Wanted him to see me become Hokage. He was my godfather but I always thought of him as my own grandfather, Naruto choked out. She pulled him into a hug as he cried yet again. It's okay, it's okay. Why did this have to happen? He asked her. I don't know, Yugito answered truthfully as she felt him shake. I'll kill him, I won't stop until he pays for what he's done, Naruto vowed. Naruto. she thought as he continued to cry in her arms. It was going to be a long night. Rain Country. AIM, Akatsuki headquarters. Did you recover his ring? Pain questioned. Black Zetsu snorted at the question, what ring? There was nothing left of it to recover after his battle with the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. This is troubling news, Pain began. Itachi, Kisame. You two are to hunt the Kyuubi and the Nibi. With Jiraiya now dead, they will be vulnerable and they won't be expecting an attack so soon. Kakuzu and Hidan will hunt the Yonbi and the Gobi after we seal the Nanabi. Conan and I will personally deal with the Hachibi, Pain finished. What about the Sanbi? White Zetsu asked simply. Tobi will deal with the Sanbi. It doesn't have a Jinchuriki so it will be weaker than the others, Pain reasoned. Oh man, you're sending Tobi? Are you mad? Black Zetsu asked in disbelief. Oh, don't be like that. After all, Tobi is a good boy, White Zetsu said simply. Everyone turned to the mask-wearing Akatsuki member and saw him standing on one of the other fingers' platforms completely motionless like a statue. He snored. I think he's asleep, Kisame laughed. You know I think he's utterly mad, White Zetsu commented. Geez, what was your first clue? The guy is clearly bonkers, Black Zetsu retorted. You have your assignments. Dismissed, Pain ordered, and the holograms of the other Akatsuki members disappeared one by one until only Tobi remained. I thought I would be the one to hunt the Kyuubi and the Nibi. Why do you want them to go instead? Because I want you to hunt the Hachibi, Tobi replied simply with none of his regular light-hearted attitude. Why don't you go yourself? Pain asked. Because I have a prior engagement, Tobi said and turned to leave. The time is not yet right to show them the Uchiha's power, my power, the power of Uchiha Madara. Fire Country. Konoha, Namikaze household. The family home of his parents was the place Namikaze Naruto had moved into once he unsealed all of his things from his travels. The entire area had been riddled with security seals of all kinds, some of which took even Jiraiya hours to finally crack. Once the seals were finally out of the way, Naruto had actually managed to find a photo of his parents which now lay beside the king-sized bed. He had also found his parents' armory, if that's what you could call it. Below the house was a network of tunnels reinforced with several sheets of metal and was filled with hundreds of different weapons and seals. There were thousands of Hiraishin kunai in storage just waiting to be used, and the seals. To be honest, he wasn't even sure what half of them did. The morning sun shone into the main bedroom of the house and Naruto let out a groan as he tried to shift away from the light. His eyes fluttered open and he felt a weight on his chest. He looked down and gave another groan when he saw Yugito's head using his chest as a pillow. They were both fully clothed, however, so he knew that nothing happened last night, but he couldn't remember getting home, so he simply assumed that Yugito somehow carried him in. Morning, Yugito rose her to look at him. Morning, he smiled back. Are you okay? She asked him. No, he answered simply. I hate doing nothing. I need to confront him. I need to confront Pain. Naruto. She trailed off, not knowing what to say. Knock knock. It's Shikamaru, Yugito told him, having sensed the Nara at the front door. Naruto nodded and rose from the bed. Yugito gave an audible groan as she felt him leave her side. Naruto exited the room and descended the stairs, reaching the door within moments. He opened it and saw a rather disheveled Shikamaru standing at his door. What is it, Shikamaru? Naruto asked him. Can I come in? The Nara asked. Naruto nodded and stepped aside to allow him entry. He closed the door behind them and they made their way into the kitchen. Shikamaru sat down at the kitchen table and Naruto moved over to the fridge. Can I get you anything? Naruto asked him, looking over his shoulder. No thank you, the Nara replied politely as Naruto grabbed a drink. Why are you here, Shikamaru? Naruto asked outright as he sat down also. I want to know everything I can about Pain. The best place to start are the only other Rinnegan users we know of. That means you, Shikamaru stated clearly. Well, the Rinnegan allows its user to manipulate all 5 main elements as well as the wood element, since the Senju got that little trick from the Rikudo Sennin. We are also able to absorb chakra directly through our hands, making ninjutsu all but useless given the situation, and we have the Yamanaka's ability to probe minds when we grab them by the head. Other than that, I have no idea, Naruto answered honestly. What about being able to be 6 people at once? Shikamaru asked him. Well, I am able to see what my clones are doing if I make them when my Rinnegan is active, but Ero Sennin once told me that the human mind can't handle the information from more than one set of eyes at the same time. I'm not sure how Pain is 6 people, the blonde replied. I understand, Shikamaru said with a nod. I'm sorry I can't be more helpful, Naruto apologized. Don't worry, I think that's more than enough, Shikamaru said as he stood once more. Before I forget, Hokage-sama wants to see you in his office right away, he mentioned. Naruto nodded as he escorted him to the door. Alright, I'll see you around, Shikamaru. Before Shikamaru closed the door, he turned slightly and said, the day will come when we surpass those who came before us. Jiraiya-sama was a great man, Naruto. From what I've seen, you will soon surpass him. He closed the door behind him as he left. Naruto just stared for a good few minutes before turning and seeing Yugito slowly walk down the stairs. What are you going to do? She asked him. Naruto thought about it for a few more seconds before giving his answer. I need to meet with Hokage-sensei. Fire Country. Konoha, Hokage Tower. Ero Sennin's code said that the real one is not there. What if he meant the real Pain wasn't among the 6 bodies? Naruto asked those that had gathered. There were only 6 people with the Rinnegan that we saw, Naruto Boya, Fukasaku responded. And the first shinobi was called Therakudo Sennin. I think those bodies that Ero Sennin and you fought were Pain's paths, Naruto continued. They did call themselves the Pain Rikudo, Fukasaku mused. That still doesn't explain how he is 6 different people though. It's the same with me and my shadow clones, but instead of dispelling like mine, he keeps them active all the time. I don't know how he makes them, but I doubt it's that much different from me, Naruto explained. Shadow clones. Jiraiya Boya recognized a few of the bodies as people he had fought before. If what you say is true, then he may be able to reanimate and control a corpse. That would explain how he was able to resurrect 3 of his bodies after they were killed by Jiraiya Boya, Fukasaku mused. He turned and asked the question, how did you come to this theory? When I create a shadow clone with my Rinnegan active, they get it too. It allows me to take direct control of the clone while I maintain control of my own body. I've never gotten used to looking in more than one direction at once. It's the reason I don't do Kage Bunshin no Jutsu on a large scale as often as I did before, because Ero Sennin warned me that the human mind isn't capable of processing so much information at once, Naruto explained. Pain might be using something similar with his 6 paths. They only demonstrated 1 jutsu each though, Fukasaku said, confused. Shizune-san is already going over the body that Jiraiya-sama recovered, Kakashi spoke clearly. Maybe once we find out how they work we will be able to fight this bastard. Tayuya's grin was worthy of Anko's praise. Don't get ahead of yourself. None of you are even close to matching Pain right now. The only one who might have a chance is Tsunade-san, and even then that chance is small. Fukasaku snorted at the very idea. Pain was able to defeat Jiraiya, who despite being considered a failure was the strongest shinobi Konoha had since his student the Yondaime Hokage died in battle against the Kyuubi. Tsunade might be able to hold Pain off for a while, but she would ultimately lose, and though Kakashi was a strong Hokage, he knew he was nowhere near Jiraiya's level. So what do we do then? Just wait for the bastards to attack us? Naruto asked angrily. That's simple, you all train, Fukasaku replied with a smirk. And you, Naruto, will be coming with me. That surprised everyone in the room. With you? Naruto asked the Toad Elder. I'll train you in Senjutsu on Mount Myobokuzen the same way I hammered it into Jiraiya Boya. A smirk somehow managed to settle onto Fukasaku's features. Will it let me win against Pain? Naruto asked him after a moment. That I can't guarantee, but right now you don't have a chance at all, Fukasaku told the blonde Namikaze. Count me in, Naruto replied. Then we leave in an hour, you'd better go pack, Fukasaku told him with a nod. Fire Country. Konoha, main gates. Don't worry about us, we'll be fine. We've got our own training to do, you know, Yugito said as Naruto pulled her into a tight hug. I'll be back soon, Yugito, he told her as he pulled away. As soon as we have any results from the autopsy or the interrogation we'll send word, Kakashi told them. I'll leave a messenger Toad, so if anything happens just send him to get us, Fukasaku said with a nod. Don't worry little brother, we'll keep this shithole together until you get back, Tayuya said a little too cheerfully. Right, Naruto deadpanned and shook his head. We really must be going. Until we meet again, the moment Fukasaku finished. Both he and Naruto disappeared in separate puffs of smoke. They vanished? Tayuya said in alarm. It's a Gyaku Kachiyose no Jutsu. Don't worry about it, Yugito told her. You two will meet me at training ground 7 in 20 minutes because I'm going to be training you both personally, Kakashi told them. What about Dickman here? Tayuya asked, pointing her thumb at the smiling rude Anbu beside them. I am afraid I will be on a mission for Danzo-sama during this time, Sai replied simply. Kakashi paid him no heed as he started down the street with his book in hand. No one could have predicted what would happen over the following week. Chapter 27, The Crying Clouds. Lightning Country. Kumo, Marketplace. Kachiyose no Jutsu. Pandemonium reigned as 6 large animals of various species destroyed everything and everyone they could find. Kumo civilians were running away from the rampage as buildings, shops and spires were left in ruins in the wake of these walking juggernauts. In the center of this mess were 3 figures with orange hair and they all wore black cloaks with red clouds on them. They didn't seem to care about the destruction the summons were causing as they proceeded towards the Raikage Tower at a walking pace. A pair of Kumo nins appeared out of nowhere and tried to attack the man in the center of the 3 only for the ground to crack around them. Shinra Tensai, Diva whispered and the nins coughed up blood for a moment before falling to the ground, obviously dead. Rantan. Reiza Sakasu. A dozen beams of light shot out from the side as Darui landed in the street with Shi at his side. Fujutsu Kyuin, Preta said as the beams dissipated upon contact with him. Who the hell are these guys? Omoi asked as he came in from the side and swung his sword. Diva pulled out a chakra blade from his cloak and parried the blow effortlessly just as Karui came at him from behind. Kachiyose no Jutsu, Animal said calmly as she slapped her hand on the ground and summoned a large bird-like creature to attack. The bird knocked Karui away as Diva spun swiftly and delivered a kick to Omoi's chest, knocking him back also. Just then Samui attacked from above, swung her own sword down on the Diva path, but alas, he was already prepared. Shinra Tensai, she was thrown back through one of the buildings nearby with thunderous force and the entire complex soon fell. Samui, Omoi called as the building crumbled. The 3 pains continued on their way towards the Raikage Tower, seemingly uncaring about anyone that stood in their way. You bastard. Omoi charged with his weapon in hand. Omoi, don't. Karui shouted to him, but it was already too late. Without even looking back, Diva whispered the words, Shinra Tensai. Pain flooded Omoi's body as the ground cracked around him. He fell to his knees a moment later, coughing blood into his hands. Omoi, Karui shouted as she saw him fall. And the 3 pains never looked back. While the others were causing the distraction, the human path made his way through the village undetected. It was here that he found his target. Jay turned quickly and his eyes widened as Human grabbed his head with his right hand. You will tell me where the Hachibi is located, Human spoke simply as Jay's eyes glazed over. It took only a moment to access the desired information from his mind. Storm Cloud Ravine. Kachiyose no Jutsu, Animal called out softly, and in a poof of smoke the Asura path appeared on the battlefield. Asura's head opened to reveal that it wasn't even remotely human at all. The skull, if that's what you can call it, glowed green for a second, and a split second later buildings were knocked down by the force of the large multi-directional green flames Asura unleashed. The force of the blast was heard across the entire village, and after a moment silence reigned across the battlefield. They kept walking. Gorochin Dorapu. A figure blurred into existence faster than the paths could realize. Instantly Diva was destroyed under the assault of the much larger Yondaime Raikage. You will not get away with attacking my village, you little ants. Asura simply watched on and fired a volley of missiles from his wrists. The Raikage evaded them all with his superior speed and moved in close only to be surprised by Asura's stealth that tried to slash at him. You clearly do not understand pain, Preta spoke in a gruff voice. You trifle with powers that you do not understand, and that will be your undoing. Don't you dare think you can lecture me, the Raikage growled at him. That's when he saw the Dujutsu the Akatsuki leader had. You have the Rinnegan? I want you to feel pain, contemplate pain, accept pain, to know pain. Those who do not know true pain will never understand true peace. A second later Preta, Diva and Asura disappeared in puffs of smoke. Animal had already left as soon as the Raikage arrived. Coward. What are you planning? The Raikage growled and turned as she arrived. He's gone, sir. It looks like they're retreating to the downtown area. She reported having sensed the direction the chakra signatures were going. I want that thing dead, the Raikage declared with anger in his voice, and he took off after pain. Kuchiyose no Jutsu, Animal whispered as she slammed her hand down on the ground and the other 5 paths appeared at her side. Immediately Naraka got to work on repairing and reconstructing the downed paths. Just then Conan appeared at his side with her cloak flapping in the wind. "What's going on?" the blue-haired girl asked. "I'm using that jutsu," Animal replied simply. "But that jutsu will shorten your life if you use it," Conan tried to reason with them. Just then Diva exited the King of Hell completely repaired. "Do you really mean to do this, Nagato? Now this world shall know pain," was his answer. Just then the Raikage arrived and Diva jumped high into the air above the village. "What is he planning?" the Raikage asked in thought as he saw the Akatsuki leader float in midair. "I can feel a large buildup of chakra coming from him," she informed him as the other pains became lifeless. The Raikage's eyes widened at this. "No. Shinra Tensei." Buildings, mountains even were pushed away as pain unleashed a massive blast of gravity in all directions. Civilian and ninja alike screamed as their village was torn apart and utterly destroyed by the unstoppable force that was sent at them. After the blast died down, Kumogakure no Sato no longer existed and silence reigned supreme. It was over. Was that really necessary? Conan asked as Diva stepped up to her. Yes, he answered simply and continued walking. Conan gave a sigh before asking the question, "Where to now?" "Storm Cloud Ravine. The home of the Hachibi Jinchuriki," Pain answered. "Lightning Country, Storm Cloud Ravine. So you are the Hachibi Jinchuriki," Pain stated as they approached the small house. The lone dark-skinned figure looked the 2-7 over and said, "Hey, so you are Hachibi-sama or Jinchuriki-sama, fools, ya fools. I'm here to capture you and bring peace to the world," Pain explained as his paths fell into formation. Preta, human, animal and Asura were in front with Diva behind them and Naraka at the very back. "Let's see now. Those eyes you have must be the Rinnegan I've heard so much about," Kurabi mused upon seeing the dojutsu. "I'm in the midst of my rhyme. You all are busting in on my time. And now I got to split my line, fools ya fools." Asura threw off his Akatsuki cloak revealing a scorpion-like body and shot forward towards the Hachibi Jinchuriki. Kurabi saw him approach and threw his 7 swords into the air. He grabbed them all with different parts of his body, surprising the Akatsuki agents as he went on the offensive and cut down the Asura path within moments. His kenjutsu is almost unreadable, Pain thought as Kurabi fell back into his ridiculous stance. "The only one who gets to dig me is me. Yoso, stand back or you'll get whacked, ya fool," Kurabi rapped with a sword still in his mouth. "Hachibi, that be me. The rapping killer be, yeah. This battle you all initiated, but I'll leave you all humiliated. This Jinchuriki isn't like the others," Conan thought as she examined the man. "He acts like a complete fool, but he's definitely taking us seriously. Only Hanzo and Jiraiya sensei have given Pain this much trouble." Suin Kuchiyose no Jutsu. Animal slammed both hands down on the ground and 2 large creatures appeared in puffs of smoke. One was a rhino and the other was a bull. They charged straight towards the Hachibi Jinchuriki, blowing up dust as they approached, and Kurabi narrowed his eyes slightly at the monstrosities. "Yo, first I'm going to float like a butterfly," he began as he jumped over the oncoming summons and went to attack Animal directly. Animal could do nothing as she was slashed and stabbed by the barrage of attacks sent at her. "Then I sting like a killer bee." Animal hit the ground with an audible thud, but Kurabi was already upon her yet again, and I end my flow. He struck down and finished off the animal path, with the finishing blow. He's strong in close combat in a similar way to the Raikage. Long-range attacks are my only choice here, Pain mused as he looked over the Hachibi Jinchuriki. This fool's Rinnegan is a real problem, Kurabi thought before putting his left hand up into the air and made a sign. "I see it can't be helped, here comes the 8. Crimson chakra exploded from his body and condensed around him into the shape of an ox with 3 tails. So that's the Hachibi's power. His chakra levels are immense, Conan thought as she studied the chakra that clung to Kurabi's body. Kurabi shot forward at blinding speed and appeared in front of human faster than anyone could blink. Lariat. The Hachibi Jinchuriki brought his fist up and clotheslined the human path. Blood exploded from Human's back as Kurabi threw him down and turned to his next target. He charged again, but this time towards Diva and Conan. This guy's strength is insane, Conan thought when she saw the third path taken down. It doesn't matter though, he will fall before Pain just like everyone else has. After all, Pain has never lost a fight. Lariat, Kurabi called as he made to blow out Diva's insides just like he did to Human. Shinra Tensai, Diva whispered, and Kurabi's eyes widened in surprise as he was flung back effortlessly and crashed hard into the mountain behind his home. What the hell hit me? That must have been a gravity jutsu like Yugito-chan told me about. These brats are a serious pain, Kurabi grumbled as he stood once more. Just then he saw that the three paths he had killed were suddenly standing upright again. What the hell? I thought I killed those guys. How do you resurrect them like that, yo? Surrender yourself now. Your death will lead to peace, Pain's voice echoed throughout the area. Shut up, y'all little pup. My true mode is the Biju's abode. The red chakra covered Kurabi's body bubbled as it grew and condensed around him. Is that of a monster? See, I told ya. His chakra is impossible. Conan gulped slightly as the chakra continued to grow. A few moments later, a giant ox with 8 tails, tentacles stood over them. Now look upon me as I make ya pee all in ya pants, ya little ants, the ox roared out. Pain remained impassive as he looked up at the monster in front of him, them. Chakra compressed into a ball at the beast's mouth as he continued, and now I will show you, an Oni Jutsu. Nagato, Conan took a step back. Do not worry, Conan, Pain reassured her. I will handle this, just stay back for now. Hachibiju Amari. Kurabi roared as he unleashed a large blast of pure chakra from the ball which obliterated the entire ravine. Shinra Tensai. Diva countered as he shielded the other paths and Conan from the blast. When the blast died down, Pain and Conan remained standing atop the water where they had been standing. That was too close, Conan exhaled. Chibaku Tensai, Diva whispered and created a small gravity ball in his hands. You don't have to go that far, Nagato, Conan told him. Would you rather I hold back? When he didn't get an answer, he continued, I will be fine, Conan. He threw the gravity ball into the air above them and it started pulling the earth itself up into the sky. Eventually there was so much mass up there that it looked like a miniature moon, and even the huge Hachibi was pulled up as well. Kurabi roared as he crashed into the artificial construct before he was able to stand once again. He tried to break free, but more slabs of earth impacted the construct and by proxy him. Enough, Nagato, Conan said to her partner. Not yet, Diva gasped out as he tried to hold his jutsu. Kurabi roared again as he was buried inside of the miniature moon and it suddenly crushed itself. It fell apart a moment later and crumbled to the ground in a pile of debris. In the center of this mess was a badly beaten Kurabi who was no longer in his Biju's full form. I have captured the Hachibi, Pain stated clearly as he approached their fallen opponent. Let's hurry up and get out of here before anyone shows up, Conan said as she proceeded to wrap Kurabi's body up in her papers for transport. Chapter 28. Be All My Sins Remembered Part 1. Fire Country. Konoha, Hokage Tower. Kakashi giggled as he read through his book. He'd finished his paperwork for today hours ago and now had time to finish reading the new Ichiraku Paradise novel Naruto gave him 2 months ago when he returned. Normally he'd have the book finished by the end of the first week, but the amount of paperwork coupled with the demands of the Elder Council took up most of his free time. Oh, how he missed the days when he could just take it easy. Knock knock. Kakashi sighed audibly and then turned to the door. Come in. The door exploded towards him and his reflexes instantly kicked in. Having been an Anbu captain for years, he was able to duck under his desk and recover quickly as the door flew over his head and through the window. The next thing he heard was the distinct sound of burning paper, and he flipped his table over so it was on its side and covering him from the attackers at the door. Explosions riddled the Hokage's office and flames raged for all to see. Kakashi coughed slightly as he stepped out of cover and thanked the Rikudo that he always wore a mask so he wouldn't breathe in the smoke. His attackers were gone, but he could still hear explosions and screaming coming from down the hall. So it's finally happened, Kakashi realized as the floor gave out under him. He fell and crashed into a pile of debris on the floor below. Crap, at this rate the entire building will collapse. He stood shakily and moved towards the stairs. I have to get to the roof now. He dashed up the stairs, noticing the various bodies that lay on the floor as he went. I will make you pay for this, Akatsuki. When he reached the roof, he was greeted to the sight of two figures he knew very well. Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame. Kakashi spoke as he brought up his Hite and revealed his Sharingan. Kakashi. It's been a long time, Itachi nodded his head in respect. Where are the Kyuubi and Nibi Jinchuriki? That doesn't matter, Kakashi said simply as the flames around the tower grew higher. You'll pay for what you've done here, he told the two. Tsunade-sama is no doubt at the hospital tending to the injured and the remnants of Team Naruto are scattered. I'll just have to do this myself then, were the Hokage's thoughts as he narrowed his eyes at the Akatsuki agents. Just then a figure blurs into existence beside him. Good timing, guy. My flames of youth are burning brightly today. The green-clad Jonin declared loudly. I see you are still a moron, you dumb beast, Kisame chuckled half-heartedly. Who are you? Guy asked upon seeing the shark-like man. I'll make sure to make you remember by the time this is over, Kisame said with a grin and took off into the village with Guy right behind him. Raiden. Rai Inu, Kakashi said as he grasped his wrist and a lightning god shot out towards Itachi. Itachi easily evaded the strike and threw out his hand to the side. You Takata, he whispered and Kakashi instantly stopped moving. I apologize Kakashi, but this is for the greater good, he spoke as he slashed his Enbu sword across Kakashi's neck. Itachi's eyes widened as Kakashi exploded into lightning and struck every nerve in Itachi's system. It is clearly a Rai Bunshin no Jutsu. Reikuri! The real Kakashi exclaimed as he plunged his lightning-covered hand through Itachi's back, where his heart was located. Impressive Kakashi. It is no wonder that you were made the Godem Hokage, Itachi said unaffected by the fist that was protruding from his chest. Bunshin Daibakuha, he whispered and Kakashi's eyes widened as he jumped away. Itachi exploded in a blast of fire which destroyed the already unstable Hokage tower. When it was over, Kakashi shifted slightly in the debris that was once the Hokage tower and stood up with a wince as pain flashed through his left arm. It didn't take him long to realize that it was dislocated and he only needed a few seconds to pop it back into place. So you survived that, Kakashi? That is impressive, but you and I both know that you cannot win here. Hand over the Kyuubi and the Nibi and we will leave peacefully, Itachi stated calmly. You know that I will never agree to that, Itachi, Kakashi declared. So be it, Itachi finished as he drew his Anbu sword to the side. Mangekyo Sharingan, Kakashi whispered after making a hand seal and his Sharingan shifted into its most powerful form. That's... Surprise flashed across Itachi's eyes for a second before he narrowed them. Kamui, Kakashi whispered. What? Itachi thought in alarm and quickly moved out of the way as time and space seemed to compress where he had stood. His sword was caught in the jutsu and crushed in a swirl of matter and air. That jutsu was. Damn it, I missed, Kakashi thought as his breathing worsened. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. A large fireball exploded from Itachi's mouth and barreled towards Kakashi's position, burning everything in its way. Kakashi jumped high, over the oncoming fireball and threw out his fist. Raiden. Rai Inu, a lightning dog shot from his hand and descended on Itachi. It struck dead center, but Itachi poofed out of existence a moment later. Damn it, he was a clone. Just then two Itachis descended upon him from above as he touched back down on solid ground. It's like I'm fighting dust and echoes. Bunshin Daibakuha, Kakashi's eyes widened at the words. Kamui, the Hokage whispered, and the two explosions that the clones created were instantly teleported to another dimension. Most impressive, Kakashi. Despite not being of Uchiha blood, you are still able to use the Mangekyo Sharingan. That is truly a remarkable accomplishment, Itachi commented. Tell me, who did you kill to get that eye? He inquired. No one. A friend of mine from back during the Third Great Shinobi War sacrificed his life to save mine, and he gave me this Sharingan as a present since he didn't have anything else to give and he had no further use for it. The Mangekyo Sharingan is unlocked when someone has a full matured Sharingan and experiences incredible guilt for something he or she has done. Or in my case failed to do, Kakashi stated calmly. That explains how you are able to use Kamui and I cannot. Only one other man in history has ever unlocked that specific ability. Uchiha Madara, Kakashi's eyes widened at the name. Itachi. Just how much of your eyesight have you lost? Kakashi asked him, but after a few moments of silence he knew he wasn't going to get an answer. You cannot win. Surrender the Jinchuriki or I will do what I must, Itachi gave the ultimatum. No, Kakashi answered simply. So be it, Mangekyo Sharingan. Itachi's eyes shifted into his own personal version of the Dujutsu. Amaterasu, black flames erupted from his eyes and shot towards the Hokage at incredible speed. With what little chakra I have left, I can't take Itachi out and, if I use that jutsu again, I will drain myself completely and without a doubt I will die. The best way I can save Konoha right now is to buy time for Naruto to return, Kakashi thought as he saw the black flames approached and the world around him seemed to slow to a crawl. Kamui, the black flames were sucked into his jutsu and disappeared as he closed his eyes slowly. Itachi bowed his head in respect as Kakashi fell lifelessly to the floor. You were a worthy opponent, Kakashi. Well, it seems this is it for me, too. Obito. Rin. Sensei. Were Kakashi's last thoughts before his eyes closed completely and forever. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. A fireball descended on Itachi's position and he quickly evaded the attack as a figure touched down beside Kakashi's fallen corpse. Namikaze Tayuya. The sister of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, daughter of the Yondaime Hokage and fellow user to the Rinnegan. Also known as the true heir to the Whirlpool country, Itachi stated upon recognizing her. Actually I prefer Uzumaki Tayuya, you prick, the redhead growled at him as she checked Kakashi's for a pulse. When she found none she glared intensely at the Uchiha mass murderer, you fucking bastard. You wish to fight? So be it, Itachi said in monotone and motioned for the come at him. Where are the Kyuubi and Nibi Jinchuriki? He questioned. Like I tell you bastard, the redhead growled at him and shot forward. Unknown. Limbo. Kakashi walked through the darkness towards the small campfire he could see in the distance along with a cluster of medium-sized rocks beside it. As he drew closer he saw a figure sitting atop one of the rocks staring into the fire and he immediately knew who it was. Kakashi? The figure called out, turning his head to watch the copy nin approach. So this is where you were, Kakashi said as he came up beside the man and sat down on one of the other rocks. Will you tell me your tale? The figure asked. Yes, but it's a long story so I want to take my time, Kakashi sighed. The man smiled and said, yeah, that's fine. You see, father? Fire country. Konoha, downtown. Sweden. Bakusu Shoha. A massive blast of water erupted from Kisami's mouth and seemed to consume a good portion of the village, forcing Guy onto the rooftops. Hold still, you dumb beast. The swordsman shouted with a grin and slid across the water. Guy dashed across the water faster than most jonin could see and intercepted the Akatsuki agent atop the water. Using his legs as leverage, he was able to knock Samahata from Kisami's grasp and kick him away while grabbing the fallen weapon. Guy jumped up with his hands grasping Samahata's handle and swing down on Kisami's position. Just before he connected, however, the handle splintered and Guy winced as his hands were stabbed and scratched by the blade, forcing him to drop it. The green-clad jonin brought out a pair of nunchaku and swung them around before assuming a stance. Samahata only allows me to use it, Kisame declared proudly as he grasped the handle of his weapon once again. He shot forward and swung down on Guy's position, die. Such strength, Guy thought as he used his nunchaku to hold the sword away from his head. Not good enough. Kisame roared and struck down on Guy with his free arm. He's too strong. Guy yelled in thought as he fell through the water towards the street below. I haven't even gotten started yet. Kisame shouted as he quickly formed several hand seals. He slammed his fist into the water and called out, Sweden. Gashokuzame. Suddenly 5 sharks made out of dense water formed beneath the water and swam towards Guy. I have no choice, Guy realized and quickly crossed his arms in front of him. Chakra exploded from him in waves and destroyed the 5 water sharks instantly as he called out, Kaimon, Kumon, Simon, Shoman, Toman, Kimon, Kai. What? Kisame exclaimed in alarm as Guy appears in front of him. Guy's battle cry is heard all across the village as he pounds the Akatsuki swordsman again and again in a blaze of power and fury. Every hit sending out a blast of fire from sheer friction of the speed involved as he continued to hammer Kisame with everything he had. Guy ended his combo with a roundhouse kick to the face of the Akatsuki agent, sending him crashing through one of the buildings below and causing it to collapse under the strain of the impact. That should do it, Guy thought as he touched down on the water once again. Sweden. Daibakusu Shoha. Water exploded from where Kisame had crashed and Guy was forced to jump away yet again. What? Guy thought in alarm. Suiro Samiodori no Jutsu. The water suddenly engulfed him and everything within a mile radius in a massive dome of water. What is this? Guy asked in thought and just then caught sight of his opponent. Kisame didn't look even remotely human anymore. In fact, he resembled a shark instead of a man and his sword was nowhere in sight. Guy appeared in front of him and delivered a punch to the shark man's jaw, but the chakra he released seemed to disappear before the impact. He's absorbing my chakra even without his sword. No, he's merged with his sword and is absorbing my chakra directly. I can't even scratch him now, Guy realized as he swam away. I must escape if I am to survive, he thought as he tried to swim to the outer edge of the dome. After a few moments he saw that the distance between himself and the end of the dome had remained the same. He's moving the dome with me. You can't escape. Even in the water he still heard Kisame's voice as he gained on the green-clad Jonin. I'm almost out of breath. I can't win, Guy realized and came to a halt before turning swiftly towards his opponent once again. Lee. I leave everything to you. May my flames of youth protect you and the village for years to come. He made a hand seal and more chakra exploded from his form. Kiyomon, Shimon. Kai. He exclaimed as his body's final gate was opened and he disappeared in a burst of speed. He slammed his fist into Kisame's face, again and again. Fire bolts blazing everywhere only to be put out by the dome of water they were fighting in as Guy continued his assault. For just a moment he thought that the water might be blown away by his chakra, but it did not, possibly because it was saturated with large quantities of chakra. Not that that mattered now. I'll just give you a clean cut. Kisame's voice roared as he struck the weakening Guy. It was over. He was a fast, dumb beast. The swordsman chuckled as he threw the now dead body of his opponent out of the water dome. A sudden shockwave washed over him and the village, making him turn toward it. What is that? He asked in thought as he saw purple chakras spiral out from where the shockwaves were originating. Oh goody. He grinned, catching on when he saw the purple chakra condense and form the shape of a giant fire cat with two tails. So you must be the Nibi Jinchuriki, huh? Well then why don't I cut off your legs and see exactly how many lives you have? You're going to pay for attacking this village. Yugito roared as she sent several blasts of fire at the dome, but they were put out upon impact. Here kitty, Kisame taunted as he moved the water dome towards her. Nekomata Gukakyu. Yugito exclaimed as a ball of crimson flames erupted from her mouth and exploded against the water dome in front of her. When the mist cleared, the dome was still intact. It wasn't enough. Is that the best you've got? Kisame laughed as he moved the dome towards her. Yugito jumped back, her massive cat form leveling buildings as she landed. Damn it. Fine, you have the elemental advantage here, but I'll just have to overwhelm you. Her tail spanned out and 3 balls of pure red fireballs formed at the tips of each tail and in front of her mouth. Kisame's eyes widened at the sight. Oh crap. Taju Nekomata Gukakyu. The 3 balls shot forward at high speeds and quickly reached their target in a matter of seconds. They slammed into dome with incredible force before they exploded with a roar, sending a wave of heat in all directions. Buildings melted all around them and the water dome collapsed under the intense heat, which was quickly vaporizing everything it touched, leaving a battered Kisame standing in the middle of the destroyed street with his Akatsuki cloak shredded. Someone is pemsing, Kisame said, grinning madly. Fuck you, Yugito snarled with a roar. You're a little too young for me. The swordsman shot back and formed a hand seal. Sweden. Daikoden no Jutsu. A massive water shark exploded from the remains of the water dome and slammed into the side of Yugito's large cat form. Fuck, he got me. Yugito thought as the water she was doused with forced her to revert to her regular form. Bastard, she rasped out as she stood once again. How about I cut off your legs? Leader Sama needs you alive so you won't die, Kisame offered as he shouldered Samahata. Go fuck yourself. Yugito shot back and held up her hands to the dark clouds that had formed above. I used Nekomata Gukakyu 4 times, so the air should be sufficiently charged, I hope. Now what are you doing? Kisame questioned before he heard the distinctive sound of lightning striking the earth. Raiden. Kirin. Yugito called out as she brought down her jutsu. Oh crap, he muttered and looked up just in time to see a large dog-like monster made of lightning shoot down from the sky and hit the place where he stood. The resulting blast was thunderous, sending massive amounts of heat and shockwaves for 100 feet almost and melting the nearby buildings in a column of blue and white light. When the dust cleared, Yugito could be seen breathing heavily a few feet away from a bleeding, but still conscious, Kisame, who was holding Samahata above his head. You used that damn sword of yours to defend against my jutsu. That's the source of your power, isn't it? Yugito asked, catching on. So you figured it out, huh? It's not going to help you, Kisame said, grinning as he formed another hand seal. Yugito wasn't going to give him the opportunity, however. Raiden no Yoroi. Electricity danced across her skin as she vanished in a burst of speed, surprising Kisame as she appeared in front of him. Kaizuki, she yelled as she struck her target. Heh, it looks like you were too fast for me, Kisame said, grinning as his head fell to the ground, soon followed by his now lifeless body. I need to hurry and help Tayuya, Yugito thought before she took off. Fire Country. Konoha, Hokage Tower debris field. Genjutsu won't work against this guy, so that leaves ninjutsu and taijutsu, Tayuya thought as she stared towards the Uchiha murder. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu. Her eyes widened when she saw the large fireball barrel towards her. Oh fuck, she thought as she raised her hands towards the fireball. Shinra Tensai. The fireball dissipated just before it touched her and she quickly went on the offensive soon after. Mokuton. Daijirin no Jutsu. She threw out her arm and it turned into several wooden spears which shot out towards the Uchiha mass murderer. Mokuton Jutsu? That is surprising, Itachi commented as he easily evaded the attack. However, power does not always equal strength. Uzumaki Tayuya, he finished as he landed on the rubble once more. Utakata, he whispered as he raised his hand to his side. Tayuya froze, having been caught in his genjutsu, and he quickly moved in for the kill. Only for Tayuya to quickly stab her arm to break free of the illusion. You have to try better than that, the redhead shouted as she shot forward. It appears you learned some interesting tricks from Naruto-kun, Itachi responded calmly as he moved to intercept. Chidori, Tayuya called out as her right hand was encased in lightning. Kakashi's jutsu, huh? Well then. Chidori, Itachi spoke as his own left hand was encased in lightning, also to Tayuya's surprise. 3 steps away, they inhaled. 2 steps away, they exhaled. 1 step away, they inhaled. 0 steps away, they clashed. Dust was blown skyward as the pair were blown back and they each slammed into the wall that surrounded the debris of the Hokage Tower. Tayuya shakily stood and shook herself before turning her attention back to her opponent. The Uchiha was standing, seemingly uninjured, and had retained his almost bored stance with his Akatsuki cloak swaying in the wind. How the fuck do you know Chidori? The red-headed Uzumaki asked the question. I copied it from an encounter I had with my younger brother 3 years ago when we first tried to capture Naruto-kun and Yugito-chan. Sasuke doesn't concern me, however his jutsu was interesting to say the least, Itachi replied with his Sharingan spinning wildly. Fuck, if he can counter Chidori like that, then what am I supposed to do? Genjutsu is useless and my gravity jutsus won't do much against someone like him, Tayuya growled in thought as she kept her gaze away from the Uchiha's Sharingan. Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu, she heard the whisper and saw Itachi exhale several small fireballs at her. Shit, she thought and raised her hands in front of her. Fujutsu Kyuin, she whispered, and the fireballs were absorbed by a sphere-like barrier in front of her. You are too slow, Uzumaki Tayuya, Itachi said as he appeared behind her in a burst of speed. Shinra Tensai, she turned swiftly and sent him crashing back against the wall with a deafening impact. Impressive but still useless, Itachi commented as he appeared behind her once again. The one I hit must have been a clone, Tayuya thought as she turned to face him again. Bunshin Daibakuha, Itachi spoke and Tayuya's eyes widened. What? The redhead exclaimed in thought as Itachi exploded with enough force to send her crashing hard into the barrier around the ruins of the Hokage Tower. He must have been the one I hit with Shinra Tensai and had his clone get in close during my 5-second recharge time. But, how would he know that weakness exactly? You have fought well, Uzumaki Tayuya, but I have experience in fighting Rinnegan users like you. I once fought Leader Sama during my initiation into Akatsuki and was soundly defeated. However, I did learn of several weaknesses in the Rinnegan which can be exploited. Although Leader Sama is too strong to allow me to exploit these weaknesses, you however aren't. You lack experience. Nothing more, Itachi stated clearly. Fuck you, the redhead rasped out. Itachi didn't say anything as he shot forward with the intent on finishing her off once and for all. The moment he was within range, however, he was blown back by a large blast of wind. Tayuya was also surprised and looked up at the figure which now stood between her and the Uchiha. Futon. Daitappa, the red and orange figure, whispered the name of his jutsu. Naruto? Tayuya asked in surprise upon seeing her brother. You did well, Tayuya. You can rest now. I've got this, Naruto told her as he kept his gaze on the Uchiha. Naruto-kun, Itachi said in monotone. This stops now. And that concludes part 2 of this story. Thank you for spending your time here at Ichiraku Ramen and listening all the way to the end. Your support helps keep these stories alive and allows the shinobi world to continue through new adventures and alternate timelines. If you enjoyed Naruto Rinnegan Chronicles, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories. Once again, full credit goes to Redrover 117, the original writer of this story. If you would like to read the original version, you can find the link to the story in the description below. Let me know in the comments what story you would like to hear next. Until the next time, stay safe, and I'll see you again at Ichiraku Ramen.